Part 36. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 351. Li Yuanding's price is a bit high. On the one hand, he doesn't want to lower the price compared with others, and on the other hand, he doesn't want to sell so much at once. To put it bluntly, the service industry requires persistence, and service experience needs to be accumulated little by little. Even though Qingtian Group now has a complete training system, it is not enough. This bowl of rice must be eaten bit by bit. Besides, he doesn't have much money now to support the rapid expansion of the entire service system. He will have to wait until next year. He now has more than 20 billion in his personal account, and the rest is in the company, and almost all of it has been spent. Building a service system is very expensive. Before further improvement, all money spent will be wasted. For example, if you purchase Kixing Motors, you will become a company user and enjoy high-quality services for 10 consecutive years. The annual service cost is 30,000 yuan. Services include medical channels, education channels, purchasing channels, consulting channels, and employment channels. With medical channels, service specialists can help customers make appointments for some scarce medical resources, such as 9 price discounts, some hard-to-get expert clinics, or help related to major diseases. The education channel can help enroll children in school, explain relevant education policies to parents, and even hire specialized tutors for children. The purchasing channel is also easy to understand. For example, if a user wants to grab mutai but cannot, the service specialist can help and grab 2 bottles of 1,499 Feishan for free every year. For example, if some new products are released, but you don't know the purchasing channels, you can still entrust them to service specialists. The consultation channel can mainly help answer some questions. For example, if you want to travel to a place but are too lazy to make a plan yourself, you can ask a service specialist for help, and you can also arrange accommodation, food, and consumption in advance. The employment channel requires service specialists to run errands. For example, if you want to send a gift and it is not convenient to carry it directly, you can agree on a location and ask the service specialist to deliver it to you. Confession is okay. Even in the middle of the night, you can ask the service specialist to deliver a pack of cigarettes, a box set, or a takeaway to your hotel. Although there are some things here that you can check online, but don't ignore a person's laziness, nor ignore a person's hands-on ability. These service items are only generalizations. Relevant departments must be established, relevant items must be prepared in advance, and the quality of service personnel must be improved. When the scale is small, it is suitable for perfection. When the scale is large, you can make money. Once the car service is started, many things can be derived. For example, doing tourism projects, such as attracting traffic to Bixin Mall. To put it bluntly, once everyone gets used to this kind of service, they can go to whichever hospital Li Yuan wants them to go to. You can let them travel wherever you want, stay in any hotel, or eat in any restaurant. As long as users are satisfied with the service, they can still make money in other ways. After all, when you go to the hospital, you only care about whether the disease can be cured, and you only care about having psychological comfort when you are most anxious. The price is secondary. The same goes for traveling. Rather than being ripped off and spending money to feel miserable, most people would rather spend money to enjoy themselves and know exactly where their money is being spent. Even if you want to find a partner, we can quickly match you with some men and women. This service system is very large. If it can be operated, it will not be eliminated for at least 100 years. Who dares to say that other industries will still exist in 100 years? It is much better to distribute wealth through the service industry than to use billions to advertise on major platforms. After all, service requires seeing something. If you can't see sincerity, no one will believe you. Can be used for marketing. Marketing will only become more and more bottomless. If you are tricked into getting into the car, who cares about your life or death? That money simply cannot be allocated. The salary of a service specialist is very high because there is a lot to learn. The current tentative monthly salary is around 20,000 yuan. The pay is not high and there are likely to be problems with the service process. If the salary is high and there are attitude problems, it means that you are not suitable for the company and will be directly blacklisted in the future. You will never be hired by Qingtian Group's service industry. After all, every employee was trained by Qingtian Group at great cost. With a high salary and attitude problems, the impact on Qingtian Group's service reputation cannot be undone by hundreds of thousands or millions. Before signing a formal contract, you must also undergo a 3-month assessment. But human nature can never be accurately grasped. This kind of thing is still unavoidable, so we must be prepared in advance. Even if someone wants to do something like this, they may not be able to do it. Because if you don't throw in 100 billion, you won't know the result at all. There is no such high threshold in any industry in the world. Even if you are playing with a lithography machine, you can still hear a sound if you drop tens of billions. In this case, 100 billion is just a sprinkle of water. Only Li Yuan can do it. He bet half of his worth on it. Li Yuan drove the car, but instead of going home, he came downstairs where Song Jiajia lived. I called Song Jiajia, and after a while, Song Jiajia came down in the elevator. Song Jiajia has already shown her pregnancy and has gone to the hospital for a checkup long ago. The expected date of delivery is in February, which coincides with the Chinese New Year. Seeing the car driven by Li Yuan, Song Jiajia's eyes lit up. Is this the new car to be released? It's very grand. You only know how good it is when you sit on it. The appearance is just a visual effect. Li Yuan opened the back door and let Song Jiajia sit in. Then he drove out of the garage and walked half a circle around the neighborhood before returning to his garage. I asked Song Jiajia to come over for dinner tonight. After all, we haven't seen each other for a long time, so it can't be justified without seeing each other. Along the way, Song Jiajia was talking about the car. I heard that electric cars are very frustrating, the riding experience is not good, and they are prone to motion sickness. Why didn't I experience it today? The car feels very calm. Li Yuan said, because of the design, the frustration of the tram comes from too strong power and too fast acceleration. It takes a few seconds for the internal combustion engine to output all the power, but the motor outputs power in an instant. The solution is easy, either start with auto parts, increase buffering, or start with algorithms to reduce power output at the moment of startup. This medium and large car is basically a two-pronged approach, but that small car only has algorithm optimization, and only needs 3 points to accelerate from 100 km to 100 km. 9 seconds. Song Jiajia nodded. The interior of the car is also very luxurious. I feel like it is incomparable to fuel cars costing 2 to 3 million yuan. I took a look and found that aren't they all products from small manufacturers? Small manufacturers do not mean poor quality. In fact, the raw materials of many international brands are shipped from our country. It is just that there is no profit from selling them on weekdays, and the quality of the copycat products on the market is poor, so it creates a stereotype. You want to support domestic manufacturers. I've already invested in it, okay. Even if there is a profit, of course I have to keep it in my own hands. A closed loop is about to form. Closing the loop is a must. While chatting, the two of them arrived at the door. Li Yuan opened the door, pulled Song Jiajia in, sat her down on the sofa, and then continued what he had just said. Nowadays, almost all sales platforms, whether online or offline, have a lot of problem. Online sales platforms, such as Pinxixi, Alibaba, Dongzi, and ByteDance, which has only emerged in the past year, basically have no consumer experience. Buying expensive things is no different from others' cheap ones. Buying cheap ones, it's easy to get into trouble and make yourself sick. The online sales platform has entered a worse stage, with endless routines and marketing techniques. It's similar offline. Chain restaurants have begun to use pre-prepared dishes, and they are still the kind of low-quality pre-prepared dishes. Internet celebrity brands pass on marketing expenses, making it almost difficult to buy products that suit your needs. Song Jiajia agreed with what Li Yuan said. She does online shopping on weekdays, searching for the same product at different prices. According to normal people's thinking, they must buy the lowest price. But when I got it, I realized that it was very different from what I expected. Choose the one with the highest price. Even if the product is of good quality, you will feel like you have been taken advantage of. Not to mention that there is a high probability that the quality you get will be the same as the one with the lowest price, which is a double advantage. So much so that she rarely buys things online now. If she can find substitutes in Bixin Mall, she buys them there. If she can't find substitutes, she goes to offline stores. Li Yuan continued, from the misfortune of small stall vendors to the rip-offs of tourists in tourist attractions, there are also various service industry traps, intermediary traps, marketing routines. I feel that consumer credibility will only take 3 to 4 years at most. Years later, it will disappear. Song Jiajia, so you want to build Bixin Mall? It's not just Bixin Mall. I don't want deflation to appear in China. Even if it does, it can't happen to me. I have to make money. If I don't make money, how can I support you? What if I run out of money? Why don't you just run away with others? What if someone beats my baby? Li Yuan was serious at first, but then he became less serious. Song Jiajia laughed, but she could also understand the pressure on Li Yuan. These tasks are very difficult to do, and in the face of the general trend, even the country cannot do it. Because the current environment is not good, looking at the overall situation, the scale should be relaxed. If the clockwork is even slightly tightened, the economy will be ruined. Now Song Jiajia also has a certain understanding of finance. She thought it was because of Li Yuan's DNA entering her body. Then some people have to pay compensation, and they have to pay compensation for another 3 or 4 years. Unless others die, Bixin Mall can only survive. It's okay, it's okay. Let alone 3 or 4 years, even if it's 30 or 40 years, I can still afford the loss. Song Jiajia liked Li Yuan's shameless appearance. He is always so confident and does not change his face despite losing tens of billions. Then you have to work hard for half a year. When I unload the goods, you will come to Bixin to work, so you won't have to worry about it anymore. When Li Yuan heard this, he immediately stared at Song Jiajia and said, "Why don't you let me? That's not okay." Song Jiajia twisted her body, "Don't stare at me like this, I'm afraid I can't help it." End of chapter. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 352. Song Jiajia returned with satisfaction. The chat with Li Yuan became more and more mature, with the feeling that there was no barrier and both parties took the initiative. In the past, Li Yuan would not have explained some of his ideas and arrangements. She felt that what Li Yuan said was just a drop in the bucket of his inner thoughts. Lu Yan had been waiting at home, and it was already almost 12 o'clock at night. When Song Jiajia came back, she immediately said, "Why were you out for so long?" "Well, there are a lot of work handovers. After all, I have to leave my position for more than half a year. I have to explain it clearly and not cause trouble to the company." Lu Yan was startled. "How can you only take half a year off? I have read your company's system and you can take 1.5 years off. Do you still want to go to work right after giving birth?" Song Jiajia explained, Those are ordinary employees. The management cannot take such a long break. Co-authorship management is not as good as ordinary employees. Yes, the salary is different, and the scope is naturally different. Yu hasn't had a day off since the Chinese New Year. What about Li Yuan? I feel like he is very idle. Lu Yan rarely saw news related to Li Yuan. Song Dalong said some time ago that Li Yuan was taking care of the funeral arrangements for Zhang Yuanqiao in his hometown and knew nothing about anything else. He's not idle either. Qingtian Group has a lot of business. Lu Yan, then, you have to take care of your employees. How could Song Jiajia not know what her mother was thinking? But, Li Yuan has already rewarded him. And in a few days, she would have to leave Zhangzhou. If it were before, there would be no problem in giving birth to a child in Zhangzhou. But now that the stock price of Jushan Media is rising day by day, her net worth has inexplicably increased to tens of billions, and it is not convenient for her to transform into a top female billionaire. Li Yuan's hospital is a good choice, at least it has a higher level of confidentiality. Mom, let's go back in 2 days. I don't want to be in the hospital in Zhangzhou. Isn't Zhangzhou Hospital better? The hospital in Qinghe County is not bad either. Lu Yan. She didn't know when it started, so she accepted the situation. Song Dalong still doesn't know it yet, and he doesn't dare to let him know. However, as Song Jiajia's identity was revealed, Song Dalong was not as tough as before, and he did not demand that the child must be aborted. After all, Song Jiajia is completely capable of independent judgment, otherwise she would not have such great success in her career. Lu Yan sighed and said, "Does your ex-boyfriend want a child? If not, it has nothing to do with him in the future. They belong to our Song family." Perhaps the only thing she could accept was that the child was related to Li Yuan. Otherwise, she couldn't imagine how she would have accepted this situation. Don't worry about him, it's just mine anyway. Boss, these are my degree certificate and graduation certificate. From today on, I am no longer a college student. Can you leave me a souvenir? How to commemorate? Cao Yuan said, I want to hold a part, a masked one, and invited some of my good sisters. Does the boss want to attend? Li Yuan. Is this to celebrate Cao Yuan's graduation or to celebrate him? Do you really want to develop into a song and dance troupe? Cao Yuan smiled and said, it's going in the direction that the boss likes. Li Yuan waved his hand and said, forget it, I'll give you a gift alone to celebrate or something, go with your little sisters. Li Yuan knew that Cao Yuan would definitely find a beautiful girl. Although he was indeed moved, there was no need for it now. His life has reached this stage due to great luck. As long as he meets someone with a normal family like Song Jiajia, he may have nothing now. But without the boss as the protagonist, the part cannot continue. Li Yuan smiled and said, then we won't celebrate. The two of us will celebrate in private. Inexplicably, Cao Yuan breathed a sigh of relief when she heard this. After all, she really didn't want to find a competitor for herself. She just felt that Li Yuan was not in a high mood recently, so she wanted to find an excuse to let him relax. The main reason why Li Yuan is not in a high mood recently is that after Song Jiajia left, many things in the company fell on him. Although Yu can take his place, Qingtian Group cannot let him go. Now Yu has 6 secretaries, and they are still too busy. As November approaches, there are only a few days until the end of the year. This year will definitely be very different from usual times. A-shares began to speculate on new energy vehicles, and the entire automobile sector increased 3 or 4 times. Lithium carbonate has become the absolute center of the topic, and the market value of Oriental Lithium Energy has once again reached a new high. An announcement from Qingtian Group almost brought the entire lithium battery industry to its knees. Now, not only has the counter-contract been successful, but it has even reached a higher level. Because the market demand for lithium batteries is too large, it cannot be affected by just tens of thousands of tons of lithium carbonate. Li Yuan has been planning for the new year, and the current stock price of Qingtian Capital is still too low. A stock price that is too low means there is not much capital in it. Even if big money were involved, it would probably only be in the tens of billions. It's just tens of billions, not worth his money. Therefore, Qingtian Capital's financial report this year must be better. He has a forecast report in his hand. Before January 1, 2021, Qingtian Capital will probably have a revenue of more than 600 billion. Just in time, everyone get out. He decided to use the more than 600 billion as bait. All along, he has been deducing the market value of Qingtian Capital. If he wants to completely kill those capitals, it is impossible without a market value of 6 trillion. So, the dividend of more than 600 billion is a good thing that must be paid out. Those big funds are very smart. Based on last year's performance and the current stock price of Qingtian Capital, the price-to-earnings ratio is only about 15. This is a very cost-effective position, and it is also a position where they have the initiative. Li Yuan didn't want them to live so comfortably. All the harsh words said during the meeting will be fulfilled next year. It would be best for all those big capitals to reshuffle their cards. Otherwise, they will always be the troublemakers in the financial industry, and we will always have to guard against them becoming second-guessing dogs. Someone has said that nothing can be established without destruction, and Li Yuan agrees with this. Because when the foundation was first built, there was too much garbage mixed in it. If you don't tear it down and start over, you will always have to worry about whether the garbage will corrode a building. No matter how well it is built, there is still a risk that it will collapse at any time. Moreover, the US dollar has received much more water than it appears on the surface, and interest rates are bound to rise in the year to come. Li Yuan read some data and felt that more water was released than in his previous life. This is quite scary, and I am afraid that the interest rate hike will also be even higher. Lie down in advance, and no matter how you raise interest rates, it won't have much impact on them. If it is still at a high point, the risk is greater. End of chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 353. Busy, yet ordinary. Li Yuan takes charge of Qingtian Group, which is no different from before, because he was the one who formulated big projects and started the company's operations before. Now the projects are almost operational. So far, Qingtian Group has 64 projects of various sizes under its name, including 43 small project investments, accounting for only about 25%. The scale of a single project does not exceed 5 billion, mainly automobile-related industry chains, and some category support from Bixin Mall. 12 large-scale investment projects, each with a single investment of more than 1 billion. Including a chemical plant, shopping malls, hospitals in Qinghe County, Qinghua Project, Maihoyo, Ningco, Limited, Venus Motor, Honor Mobile, etc. It holds 3 holding companies, Qingtian Capital, Bixin, and Jushin Media. There are also 6 cooperation projects, such as automotive systems, Hongmeng, chip semiconductor manufacturing, Hisilicon, medical device cooperation, biological research laboratories. Before we knew it, it was the end of December. Li Yuan has eaten with many friends in the past 2 months. With the price of lithium carbonate exceeding 200,000 per ton, Gudongshen is really making money. The chemical plant that has been in preparation for 2 years has been officially launched. After all, nearly 10 million tons of raw ore must be transported back every year, and refining it is an arduous task. Even if it is a rich ore, 10,000 tons can only extract 700 to 800 tons of lithium carbonate. It seems like a lot, but it's actually quite a lot. Domestic production capacity is expanding rapidly, but it still cannot make up for the gap. Because Ningde has signed an agreement long ago, the cost of raw materials has been reduced a lot, so the overall revenue is outstanding, and it has officially become the first company on the gem with a market value of over 1 trillion. Countless people's eyes are fixed on Qingtian Capital, waiting for them to issue their annual report. In a few days, 2020 will be over. Theoretically, it can be sorted out within a few days, but no one knows when Qingtian Capital will announce it. Li Yuan hosted a banquet at home for Gu Dongsheng and Chen Qi, who had just returned to China. After 2 years of absence, Gu Dongsheng has changed from a handsome boy to a rough man. He looks to be in his 30s. Chen Qi was a little better, but he looked haggard, as if he hadn't slept well. After sitting down, Gu Dongsheng pointed at Chen Qi and said, "Lao Chen has been very busy during this period. We are responsible for building the territory. He does all the scheduling. He has to open one eye when sleeping." Li Yuan poured a cup of tea for Chen Qi, and then asked Gu Dongsheng, "It should be easier over there lately, right?" Gu Dongsheng said, "It depends on what result you want. If you only want raw materials, with the territory we have built in the past 2 years, it will not be a problem to supply it stably for more than 10 years. Li Yuan smiled and said, "That's fine, earn some money to spend. I have transferred your money to your account through Qingtian Group. Please take a good rest when you come back this time." In fact, Gu Dongsheng didn't make any money. As an internet celebrity in China, he earns a guaranteed income of several hundred million or more than $1 billion a year. After 2 years of hard work abroad, I only got $1 billion. Originally, he should have been able to get more than 2 billion, but Feng gave it to Chen Qi. Chen Qi remained silent. He knew that it was Gu Dongsheng who would intercede with him. Otherwise, Li Yuan could arrange for someone else to take his place at any time. How can an ordinary person earn hundreds of millions a year? Even with the backing of a big shot like Li Yuan, it was not given casually. If he couldn't show the ability that Li Yuan valued, he could only fight hard. But similarly, for ordinary people, even if they work hard, they can't earn hundreds of millions. Gu Dongsheng is the real ruthless person, which can be seen from the time he dared to spread rumors about Anna Shen. Especially after spending 2 years with Shen Tianfu, Gu Dongsheng's whole person has been transformed. Otherwise, wherever they got so much raw ore, they would have taken it from other forces. He was beaten every day and Gu Dongsheng was injured at least 5 or 6 times. He said he was ruthless, but in fact he couldn't be as cruel as Gu Dongsheng. To describe Gu Dongsheng using moral standards, he would do anything evil, have despicable means, and have a vicious heart. Chen Qi currently has no lives on his hands, while Gu Dongsheng kills people without blinking an eye. Those hands are not much different from the judge pen of the underworld. Hearing that he was going to rest, Gu Dongsheng said, "Forget it, I don't even dare to go home now. I will leave after half a month. You are not allowed to arrange my life." Li Yuan did not answer, but asked Chen Qi, "Where is Lao Chen? Do you have any plans?" Chen Qi said awkwardly, "I'm going to go back to my hometown." "Then don't fall into the trap." "Okay, don't worry." After the 3 of them had eaten, Chen Qi was the first to make an excuse and leave. On Gu Dongsheng's side, Li Yuan asked Cao Yuan to make arrangements. After all, where would he go to do such a thing? After Cao Yuan came back, she said to Li Yuan, "I feel like Gu Dongsheng has changed so much. Suddenly it's like I don't recognize him anymore." She was still very grateful to Gu Dongsheng. It was Gu Dongsheng who gave her a chance, otherwise she would not have become Li Yuan's pillow. After all, she had long since become a slave to money, ever since she was engaged to someone else at the age of 18. People change, but it would be nice to have a few old classmates with me. From the time Gu Dongshen asked those words, Li Yuan knew Gu Dongshen's ambition. Maybe there was Shen Tianfu's factor in it, but Li Yuan didn't care. Without Shen Tianfu, making this money would not be very smooth. The current cost of their lithium carbonate is less than 40,000 yuan per ton, of which 20,000 yuan is the domestic processing and refining cost, and the cost of foreign raw ore is only 20,000 yuan. In March next year, lithium carbonate can rise to 470,000 per ton, and its cost is less than a fraction. 1 ton can net a profit of more than 400,000. It can transport 200,000 tons of finished products and 10 million tons of raw ore a year. His own chemical plant cannot refine it, but he can sell it, and the price will not be cheap. Even if the price of lithium carbonate drops to hundreds of thousands and stabilizes in the future, he will not lose money. Based on this data, you can imagine that you can earn nearly 300 billion in profits a year. After stabilizing, the annual net profit will be between 50 billion and 80 billion. This thing makes more money than building cars. Almost all new energy vehicles in the world have to pay him. Gu Dongshen is still not satisfied, it means he wants more. He and Li Yuan thought very much. At first, Li Yuan only wanted to have wealth and freedom, earn billions or tens of billions, and have no shortage of money to spend throughout his life. But as I kept doing it, I became dissatisfied. It's like someone said, as long as you give me 10 million, I will be satisfied. But the actual situation is that if you have 10 million, you will still think about 30 million, 50 million, or 100 million. Because the things you are exposed to are different, the most terrifying thing in the world is desire, which can increase endlessly. In his previous life, Gu Dongshen was quite contented with his monthly salary of more than 20,000 yuan, right? As a result, now, I am not satisfied with earning hundreds of millions a year from selling goods, and I still want to go out and make a fortune. What he wants to do now is not money. How much money he makes means nothing to him. He also wants power. I said those words to Li Yuan just to test Li Yuan's tone. Maybe he and Shen Tianfu had already started planning. Li Yuan had no reason to refuse, and would even provide help and direction. He knows there are many opportunities in the future. For example, the country where the Briquette King is located. The big picture begins soon, which is the most suitable stage for careerists. Cao Yuan asked, it feels very strange. Gu Dongshen cheated you once, but now he is the best. Ma Chenkai seems to be a transparent person now. I haven't heard from him for a long time. Everyone has his own choice. You were just a little green tea before. Cao Yuan. Cao Yuan didn't pay much attention to Li Yuan before, but later she heard that Li Yuan was a rich second generation, so she took the initiative to strike up a conversation, scolded Tong Sui, and her green tea attributes were immediately maxed out. Then why don't you accept Tong Sui? Don't you have any regrets in your heart if you don't sleep with us? Haha, no need, her rank is too low, not as high as yours. You are green tea, at least you haven't had any disagreements. Li Yuan felt that he was not a good person either. A scumbag would go well with green tea. Tong Sui wasn't even considered green tea, she was just making tea and it was of no use to him. Except for Xu Yanlin, all the women around her were useful. Xu Yanlin is like the anchor point of his youth, and he has already passed the road of youth. If he wants to find that feeling, he can only place his hope on this anchor point. So he can keep Xu Yanlin at all costs. As for everything else, they all need each other, or they don't need each other. The initiative lies with them. Not only would Li Yuan not stop anyone who wanted to leave, he would also give him a gift to express his gratitude. If he doesn't want to leave, then he will do his duty. Gu Dongshen and Ma Chenkai actually have the same nature and are useful to Li Yuan. As long as Li Yuan is sure that the other party has no principal issues, he can accept them. Gu Dongsheng has a sense of presence and has matching abilities. There is no reason for Li Yuan not to get closer to him. Ma Chenkai did not choose this path, and Li Yuan did not give him a suitable opportunity, so alienation was inevitable. He is such a realistic person. Even Anna Shen didn't ask for it. If he hadn't cooperated with Shen Tianfu, he wouldn't have wanted it. Shen Tianfu can be regarded as a bereaved dog. Li Yuan gave him a chance to anchor on his daughter, and now he can do things in a down-to-earth manner. In the future, Anna Shen's children can also serve as an anchor for his power to extend abroad, provided that Shen Tianfu can make a name for himself abroad. Cao Yuan couldn't tell whether to laugh or cry. I don't know whether the boss is laughing at me or praising me. Laughing at you is equivalent to laughing at myself, don't you think? Well. The next day, Cao Yuan once again brought news to Li Yuan. It belongs to Gu Dongsheng. The news is simple: Gu Dongsheng wants a child, and not one yet. After Li Yuan heard this, he started thinking. This shows that Gu Dongsheng is determined to do something big, but he is worried that Li Yuan will not support him, so he wants to leave something as a bargaining chip. It also made Li Yuan feel relieved about him. Leaving the child behind, he still had his parents, so it was impossible to trick Li Yuan behind his back. How much did he say? If you get pregnant, I'll give you 10 million. After all, the people were arranged by Anna Shen, and they were all girls from her studio. She knew that these messages were normal. It seems like this guy really doesn't care about money. Well, what do you think? Li Yuan glanced at Cao Yuan and said, "It's none of my business. He can take it if he wants it, and the money is his. If you have a daughter, just book a baby wedding for my son. If you have a son, and then..." He only has a daughter now, born to Anna Shen, and she will not have anything to do with Gu Dongsheng, otherwise Shen Tianfu's family will be too clingy. Moreover, Cao Yuan can also be traced to Shen Tianfu's lineage. Obviously she is currently acting as a messenger. After all, it was normal for her to have a good relationship with Gu Dongsheng. Then I'll go and give the little sister some psychological counseling. Good. Desire is intertwined in everyone's heart, and those who open the door to desire are in great pain. Li Yuan is busy now, thinking about all kinds of things all day long, which is the result of opening the door of desire. Gu Dongsheng wants his support, definitely not just in terms of money. He didn't contact Polly in person before because he thought the order was not big, so it was time to contact him now. Just clear the inventory in the country and let them upgrade their equipment. Yao Yingsong left Qinghe County. In fact, he was a little reluctant to let go. After all, he just talked about his girlfriend. He knows that there are many people working hard behind his love. It was Zhou Ran at first, but it didn't succeed. Later, when he suddenly succeeded, he felt that Li Yuan was behind it. So before returning to the capital, he planned to come to Zhangzhou to treat Li Yuan to a meal. With his conditions, he could actually find a girlfriend, but he would either choose a marriage from some clique in the capital, or he could only find a very ordinary girl. After all, his salary is not high and his family has no money. Wang Qi had no choice but to have poor academic qualifications. Maybe if he chooses a factional marriage, he will find a better girlfriend than Wang Qi, but in that case, he will have to work for others for the rest of his life, and he will have no say in it. Whether you get promoted or not is all decided by others, and the control is always in their hands. It's different now. With Li Yuan, he can get everything he wants without being constrained. It can be said that Wang Qi is almost his best choice at the moment, bar none. After he returned to Zhangzhou, he called Li Yuan as soon as possible. "Boss, I'm getting ready to return to the capital. After completing the formalities at Qingtian capital tomorrow, how about I treat you to a meal?" Li Yuan replied, Forget it for now, you go about your own business first, and I will come over when you and Zioki get married. This, maybe until the end of next year. After all, Sister Ran needs people around her now. Li Yuan heard that this meant that Zhou Ran was here again. Damn it! She swore last time that she was in a safe period. No, you are several years older than her, how come you are called that? Yao Yingsong is already 28, and Zhou Ran is only 23. This, I'm shouting after Kikai. After all, Sister Ran has helped me a lot, otherwise I probably won't be able to afford a wife in this life. Haha, Sister Ran regards Xiao Qi as her biological sister. Being able to introduce her to you means that she really appreciates you. When you get married, I will give you a big gift. Yao Yingsong didn't know what this gift was, but to be able to tell something about it from Li Yuan's mouth was definitely extraordinary. End of chapter. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 354. January 1, 2021. Meng Jiangguo is looking forward to this day more than anyone else. He knows the company's situation better than anyone else. After all, as the general manager, he knows all the data. It's just that because time has not arrived, a lot of data has not been finalized. After 0 o'clock, the data of the past year was completely finalized, which was also the time he dreamed of. He didn't have to announce it, but he just wanted to know. It doesn't matter if he works overtime or something. He works overtime voluntarily and doesn't want overtime pay. After all, he is the general manager, and no one except Li Yuan cares about him. He couldn't make the entire financial statement personally, but he had prepared the data in advance and just needed to sort out the data today. From management fees alone, it earned a full 60 billion yuan this year, plus more than 20 billion yuan from DAI funds. There are also subscription fees and redemption fees, which are close to 20 billion. These businesses are the core businesses of Qingtian Capital, and they are also businesses that can make profits without losing money. That adds up to more than 80 billion. No financial company in the country can reach this level. Proper number 1. However, this is not the most important thing. The most important thing is the return on investment of your own funds. However, the money has not been recorded yet and is still in the investment account. In theory, it cannot be counted as the company's income. It will have to wait until it is taken out. But Li Yuan suddenly sent him a message. Compute the financial report as soon as possible and give it to me on the 6th. All financial management income will be included, and it will be based on today's net worth. He was shocked. If financial management is included, Qingtian Capital's income this year will definitely be crazy. Because Qingtian Capital closed the subscription channel in September, even so, the total scale was still guaranteed to be 2,300 billion. It has nothing to do with Guo Meng's level. Guo Meng is only responsible for the strategies formulated by Li Yuan. And, it just so happens that the entire A-share market has been rising because of the votes Li Yuan bought. Even though there was a retracement in the middle, it still made trillions in profits for more than a year. How much you earn is easy to calculate. The 4 funds of Qingtian Capital have invested 450 billion, while Qingtian Group and Jushin Media have invested a total of 90 billion. Then the total subscription funds are 500 billion, plus the remaining billions of funds from a year ago, so the capital is less than 1,100 billion. And now, the scale has reached 2,300 billion, with a floating profit of 1,200 billion. Such a large volume doubles in 1 year, serving 8 million citizens and 3 million shareholders. Damn, it's so great. There is some overlap between Christian citizens and stock investors, but in total, at least tens of millions of people have made money in it. The number of basic citizens ranges from 30 to 50,000 to 2 to 300,000. There is no way for investors to predict. You immediately began to include investment income. Calculated based on today's net worth, this data will become terrifying. Knowing that Li Yuan was anxious, he said, "Boss, I estimate it to be around 680 billion. Well, that's about it. Give me the detailed report on the 6th." Li Yuan didn't sleep, just waiting for this result. Qingtian Capital still has debts of 200 billion. But the previous agreement should be able to recover its cost now. This is equivalent to receiving 440 billion in succession and giving them a pile of stocks. The value of that pile of stocks now exceeds 600 billion. It shows that there is still money to be made. It's time to make that deal happen. Offset the debt and give him more than 100 billion. It is not a problem for Qingtian Capital's revenue to exceed 800 billion. Expenses will be much higher this year. After all, many employees are forced to live and eat in the company and cannot go out. Mental damage compensation and overtime pay must be calculated based on 3 times the annual salary. If some bonuses are given, it is estimated that more than 1 billion will be spent. It's all fractions. There are a lot of predictions about the performance of Qingtian Capital on the internet. After all, who makes Qingtian Capital too dazzling? Especially the tens of millions of people who have made money from Qingtian Capital are undoubtedly loyal fans. Daytime on the 1st. Li Yuan called Tang Jianjun. The A-share market is closed, so there will be no changes in the data. He immediately offered to honor the contract. Although the time is still 2 months away. But Tang Jianjun and the others also wanted to be safe. Li Yuan, if you cash out a large sum of money, you will definitely smash the market. Otherwise, if we seek large-scale transactions, we may offer a discount of about 10%. Can you accept it? Let's just pay the original price. Someone will definitely take it. Where are we now? Those big funds haven't left the market yet. If we spend hundreds of billions, they won't be able to bear it. They will definitely be willing to pay this money. Real or fake? This is my old profession. Don't you doubt my vision. Ha ha ha, don't you dare, no one can question you in this regard. The entire A-share market has ushered in a year of excitement. But now is simply not the time to cash in on profits. Those big funds often invest hundreds of billions in it, but they don't have that high mobility. Basically, it takes a long time. The space opened above is not enough to support them in making money. Therefore, there is still some increase. Perhaps the scale of Qingtian Capital can reach 2,500 billion by the end of January and 2,700 billion by the end of March. This time, he had no intention of making money. Release the data in advance to give the market some time. There are still 19 trading days before the Chinese New Year. It depends on how far Qingtian Capital can go. At the opening of trading on January 4th, Qingtian Capital rose 3 points. On this day, the financial report was not released. Too many people have called on Qingtian Capital to publish its annual report in advance, but in fact it only needs to be published before March and it will not be considered a violation. On the 5th, Qingtian Capital rose by 1 point. On the 6th, Qingtian Capital suddenly jumped 7 points, with a total transaction volume of 6 billion that day. This is still very rare for Qingtian Capital, because Qingtian Capital does not have many chips. In the past, those who had allotted shares to basic mining were not willing to sell at all. Qingtian Capital only spent a total of 10% on new shares. Few people reduced their holdings in the process, so there were not many transactions every day. There are only 15% of the chips circulating in the market. Even though the market value is already 1.7 trillion, there is not much money in it. 100 billion is too much. It's just that the performance is too good and there are too many fixed chips, so the bubble is big. If Li Yuan reduces all the chips in his hand, the funds inside will be really scary. Similar to Mutai, every price is available. Qingtian Capital is not good, many positions are short-term, and the funds are not strong. That night, Qingtian Capital urgently released its annual report because it happened to be Friday. 800 billion in revenue. Dividends of 700 billion. These two figures directly shattered the outlook of all A-share investors. If you buy before then, the dividend can reach a terrifying 40%. Although there will be X-rights, it is equivalent to a 40% reduction in holding costs, and there is too much room for follow-up. Not to mention that this data will cause the stock price to skyrocket. This earth-shattering data swept the country and even spread around the world in the blink of an eye. There is no listed company in the world with a division of labor worth RMB 700 billion in a single year. There are many companies richer than Prime Capital. Apple has nearly $200 billion in cash on its books, but only Prime Capital is willing to pay dividends. Last year the dividend was 70 billion, and this year the dividend is 700 billion. After Tang Jianjun got the news, he called Li Yuan immediately. Li Yuan, you can't live anymore? Divide 700 billion. Li Yuan said with a smile, there is no way, the market is not optimistic about Qingtian Capital, Mojiji only gives me a market value of more than 1 trillion, when will I become the world's richest man? Tang Jianjun was confused. You, Li Yuan, would have become the richest man in the world if you took out the money in the dark. Do you care about the title of the world's richest man? It's rare. It's rare. After all, I don't have anything else to pursue. Besides, isn't it good to have high dividends? It gives everyone some confidence in the market. But the question is, how do you come up with these 700 billion? Dividends will be distributed again in April, so take your time. Let me tell you something, can we reduce our holdings? Don't worry, we won't reduce our holdings too much. We can reduce our holdings by 5% at most. Tang Jianjun called to talk about this. The dividends are indeed huge. They hold 20% of the shares of Qingtian Capital and can distribute 140 billion in dividends. This can be said to be Tang Jianjun's most impressive investment so far. Last year, more than 10 billion were distributed, and the cost was almost recovered. Are you willing to reduce your holdings? Li Yuan asked. I definitely don't want to part with it now, but starting from next Monday, Qingtian Capital will definitely increase the limit and wait until the market value reaches 4 to 5 trillion before reducing its holdings. It is almost certain that Qingtian Capital's market value will exceed 4 trillion. No one dares to give Li Yuan a low valuation anymore, otherwise all retail investors will rush in. Who knows how much dividends Qingtian Capital will pay next year? This guy Li Yuan has a very strong ability to make money. If the market is not good, he can earn hundreds of billions. If the market goes well, he can earn nearly 1 trillion yuan. Okay, it doesn't matter if I reduce my holdings. If it weren't for the inconvenience for me to reduce my holdings, I would have thrown some of them in the market. Otherwise, the trading volume would be so small every day, which would make me uncomfortable. Haha, don't worry, I won't reduce my holdings much. I'm just cashing out a sum of money to deal with emergencies. I'll definitely give your Qingtian Capital some protection in the future. Well, there are more and less market conditions. Let's reduce our holdings by 10%. But wait until the market value exceeds 6 trillion. Don't let those people get chips too cheaply. This can be regarded as the greatest kindness Li Yuan gave Tang Jianjun. Because if you continue to hold it, Qingtian Capital will be gone. He was only going to play this once and completely bury those big funds in it. All major capitals are holding emergency meetings to consider Li Yuan's intention to do this. Li Yuan generously distributed 700 billion in dividends. What did he want? It must be because of market value. His net worth last year was estimated to be only more than 400 billion, which is still a long way from the world's richest man. It may also be that he wants to cash out, because he holds 55% of the shares of Qingtian Capital, and the bulk of this dividend falls into his hands. Then shall we carry the sedan chair for him? What can't we give up? Don't give away the money you get, but we must also prevent that guy from taking the opportunity to reduce his holdings and cash out. Anyway, as long as he doesn't reduce his holdings and cash out, we will not suffer a loss. We will collect his interest, etc. After April, go smash his plate. There is no doubt that even if the market value of Qingtian Capital exceeds 6 trillion, there will still be people coming in to get dividends close to 12%. No one thinks even 8 trillion is excessive. A company that earns 800 billion a year and distributes 700 billion in dividends, and has a market value of more than 10 trillion, is scorned. According to Mautai's calculation, a market value of more than 20 trillion is considered normal. Apple doesn't even make that much money. It seems that this time, the coffin will be taken out. Not necessarily, Qingtian Capital doesn't have many chips. But if you can't get it in the early stage, those people won't be willing to hand over their chips if they don't raise more than a dozen daily limits. Hey, I'm so greedy. In one sentence, everyone's thoughts were expressed. Who is not greedy? Qingtian Capital has simply refreshed their understanding. Is there really a company that earns so much money in a year? BlackRock is so large that it may not be able to earn so much in a year. Who can bear to see such a huge sum of money in front of them? However, they will still keep a close eye on Qingtian Capital's major shareholders, especially on the chips in Li Yuan's hands. As long as Li Yuan does not reduce his holdings, they will see more than 6 trillion. If other major shareholders do not reduce their holdings, they can see more than 10 trillion. No way, it's only worth so much. Boss, are you really getting 700 billion in dividends? If not. Li Yuan received a call from Yu and replied. The dividend is 700 billion, which is equivalent to 7 yuan per share. When the company first went public, the stock price was 2 yuan, which meant that as long as you bought it at that time, you could earn 77 yuan in dividends alone, and the cost would have been zero. Not to mention the unparalleled stock premium. And Yu has the dividend rights of 5 million shares, and this time he can get 35 million. Haha, thank you boss for the meal. Yu felt that the fatigue of this year was gone all of a sudden. The salary-related data has not been released yet, but it is definitely higher than last year. Maybe the salary will be more than 10 million? It's a pity that he no longer cares about Qingtian Capital. Meng Jiangguo should know. The company will not hold the annual meeting this year, but employees still cannot go back. We will wait until next year. This year's salary will be tripled, and an additional half-year bonus will be added. Qingtian Group will also make arrangements to unify the standards. Hasn't the salary in the distribution business already been increased? The basic salary is 10,000 yuan. It will be calculated as 40,000 yuan for the whole year. Is it going to be increased again? Well, it's all gone up. 4 times the salary, and then calculating it as 3 times the salary, it is equivalent to everyone's basic salary rising from 10,000 yuan to 60,000 yuan, which will eventually be paid in the form of bonuses. Boss, Qingtian Group doesn't have that much money anymore. This is equivalent to more than 200,000 yuan more for each delivery person, and more than 200 billion more than the basic employees. Cash out part of your investment. It's not suitable to go to the bank to borrow money. Hey, okay. Yu had only one feeling. It was really great to work at Qingtian Group. Even the auditors in Bixen can get an average of more than 20,000 yuan per month this year, close to 30,000 yuan. What a magical day this is. Except for Qingtian Capital, which is making money, everything else seems to be losing money. He doesn't know how many more years Qingtian Group can continue to struggle like this. After hanging up the phone, Li Yuan was already thinking about what would happen after the collapse of Qingtian Capital. End of chapter. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 355. The Forbes ranking was originally supposed to be released on the 6th due to special reasons, but was eventually postponed. Because there will be major changes at the top of the list. When Qingtian Capital initially had a market value of 1.5 trillion, Li Yuan's wealth was estimated to be only the second in the world. The first is the founder of Amazon. His net worth this year reached $113 billion, while Li Yuan's net worth is only $105 billion. But Qingtian Capital has skyrocketed. And we don't know how high it will go. Li Yuan's wealth is more than that, but Li Yuan stuffed his money. Except for the two listed companies Jushan Media and Qingtian Capital, which he couldn't hide, he didn't mention anything else. It's just that this time the surge was too outrageous. When the A-share market opened on January 9, Qingtian Capital did not hesitate at all. It went straight up to the daily limit, and its market value was only one step away from 2 trillion yuan. Li Yuan's net worth rose accordingly. The next daily limit will bring him a net worth of 100 billion. Qingtian Capital has sold more than 600,000 yuan, and I don't know who sold the chips in their hands. It can only be that some fund companies have positions in their hands. In this case, chips were transferred. Otherwise, the announcements of Qingtian Capital and the news of the past few days are clearly written on the homepage. Anyone who has no clues would not be able to choose to sell at this time. No matter how urgently you need money, you will have to borrow it from others for a few days if you break your head. If you take your stock holdings to the bank at this time, you may be able to double your loan. With this data, things fall into place. Forbes released the list directly and marked the deadline on January 9. At this time, Li Yuan was worth $120 billion. Tang Jianjun issued a shareholding reduction announcement and will reduce the shareholding in 7 days. The reduction will account for 5% to 10% of the total share capital. This is a big reduction, but it has no impact on the market. Many people are even waiting for them to reduce their holdings, otherwise retail investors will not be able to get in at all. Qingtian Capital's dividend payment date is April 3. Before the dividend is paid, the market value of 6 trillion will definitely be able to withstand the competition. Now a mere 2 trillion yuan is not enough to scare away the market, and it is not Li Yuan who is running away anyway. Qingtian Group withdrew 60 billion in investment to pay wages and benefits to employees. The salary of many employees in the company has exceeded 2 million, especially at Qingtian Capital, where the salary itself is high. There are also a total of 120,000 delivery persons in the logistics system, also known as couriers. Anyone who joined early this year will have an annual salary of just over 1 million. The company's initial fourfold reward increased from 10,000 to 40,000, and finally the additional reward was increased to 60,000, which is 720,000 a year. At the same time, an additional half-year bonus of 360,000 yuan was added, adding up to 1.08 million yuan. It's just that a large part of this money has already been distributed, and it will only be added in the future, and it is in the form of bonuses and does not require tax deduction. Overall, last year's revenue was only RMB 500 billion, the wages of express delivery employees exceeded RMB 100 billion, and other expenses exceeded RMB 60 billion, resulting in an overall net loss of around RMB 100 billion. There was nothing we could do about it. At that time, almost all other express delivery services in the country were stopped. More than 6,000 employees in the Bixin logistics department fell down. The rest were all under high-intensity work pressure, which only eased a little in the second half of the year. Li Yuan knew that he had given too much this time, and if the follow-up price was lower, many people would have a psychological gap. But service personnel must stand the test. If after taking more than 1 million, you will no longer want to serve due to the psychological gap that will arise later, it will be easy to get together and part ways. 1 million is indeed a lot for ordinary people, but it is definitely not enough to last a lifetime. Only by working can you eat for a lifetime. Li Yuan's principle is that once blocked, he will never be hired. He has to consider the operation of the entire system. In this kind of service system, a rat excrement will definitely ruin a pot of soup. He's paying a premium this year, but most of it is deserved. In this environment, he couldn't eat well, sleep well, and had to maintain high-intensity work. Li Yuan himself felt that the little money he earned could not make up for his hard work in the past year. After Qingtian Group announced the bonus data among its employees, all the 130,000 employees of Qingtian Group were shocked. Some people who joined the company late had a lot of gains. Calculated based on the whole year, those who joined the company early enjoyed a full year's benefits, and the amount of salary was unimaginable to them. They never thought that their annual salary would reach this level in their lifetime. It can range from more than 300,000 to more than 2 million. The traders of Qingtian Capital start with an annual salary of almost 2 million this year, and the security guards who watch the gates have an annual salary of more than 400,000. It's just a pity that there will be no holiday this year. They really want to go out with their millions or go back to their hometown. Even though Qingtian Group's high wages were said to be kept secret, many people still spread the news. Especially couriers, they never thought they could earn millions a year, and they all show off crazily online. Human beings are essentially repeaters, and now they have become an ostentatious repeater. Netizens simply don't believe that there is still any capital for conscience in this world. Hua's salary is high, but only for those with strong abilities. Why should couriers be paid? Qingtian Group has paid more than 100 billion in wages, so what will happen in the future? Those who say these words are actually very bitter. I feel bad about why I didn't apply for the job. Almost everyone saw Qingtian Group's recruitment information at the beginning of the year. Only a few people are determined to come over in the end. 100,000 people were recruited the year before last. Because of the black swan of 2020, even if wages are raised, there are still people who are unwilling to take risks for 300,000 to 400,000 a year. But now, it suddenly became more than 1 million, and my intestines were filled with regret. After all, the matter is not as serious as imagined. There are currently no death records among hundreds of thousands of couriers. Grass. That's 1 million a year. At this time, I looked back and wanted to take a look at the recruitment information of Qingtian Group. There were only 2 words: heartwarming. Qingtian Group's recruitment does not look at academic qualifications, but only requires patience and a sense of service. There are still gaps, such as Kixing Automobile, Vixen Logistics, etc. On January 20th, Li Yuan was ready to return to his hometown. All employees' salaries have been paid, but Yu came over to tell him some bad news. That's because there are a lot of employees resigning. At least several thousand people have submitted applications to resign. Everyone agreed. According to our rules, we will compensate them with 4 months' basic salary and then recruit new people. Yu nodded, but still said with some worry, "Boss, I'm afraid it's not the peak period for resignations yet. At the end of this year, many people's income will be less than expected, and I'm afraid they will choose to resign." Li Yuan said nonchalantly, "If you resign, you should resign. It has been approved. It is still our old rule. We will not rehire employees who have resigned." Good. To put it bluntly, Li Yuan is not short of people. The basic salary he gives is generally 30% higher than that of his peers. Last year's salary income was the reward given by Li Yuan based on various circumstances. It is considered normal if there is no follow-up. Because you have to resign, either there are better choices, or you are simply not mature enough. Li Yuan doesn't care at all if he's not well raised. Seeing Yu preparing to leave, Li Yuan said, "When you are in the first year of junior high school, come to my house." Yu immediately said, "Hey, boss, don't worry, wishing you a happy new year on the first day of the Lunar New Year is the only thing I have to do in the rest of my life. I don't dare to forget it." Yu, Meng Jiangguo and Guo Meng all received almost 15 million this year, and there are still 35 million in dividends on the way. After Li Yuan returned, he took out a box from the back seat of the car. It was inconvenient for him to transfer money directly to Cao Yuan now, so he simply made an appointment with the bank for a batch of cash to take back. This part was given to Cao Yuan as her expenses for taking care of Chenji. What should be given, after all, it has been a long time since Cao Yuan received a bonus. The next day, after bidding farewell to the two of them, he returned to Qinghe with Xu Yanlin, who was on vacation. At the same time, he was followed by a car containing 10 million in cash. Of these 10 million, 5 million are given to the bodyguard team, and the other 5 million are given to the medical team. Although those people were arranged by Tang Jianjun and received their own wages. However, for those who have been in contact with him for a long time, he still needs to give some appropriate rewards. He has already said hello to Tang Jianjun about this money, so those people can accept it with confidence. It's almost 400,000 yuan per capita, which is not particularly large, but if given at once, the visual impact is still very strong. We are all ordinary people, who doesn't want more money? It's just that they have gone through a more rigorous assessment and their will is a little stronger. But once something happens at home, what is the bottom line? It should be done or not. Now that there is a first time, there will be a second time. Li Yuan will give money in the future, and their principles and bottom line can also be strengthened. After returning home for 2 days, the A-share market was also closed and almost fell into the lockdown circle again. This is why Li Yuan did not take a holiday. Once there is a holiday, we won't be able to gather as many staff after the new year. The service industry cannot operate online for a long time. On this day, Qingtian Capital finally opened. After more than a dozen consecutive daily limits, the market opened for the first time, and the transaction volume exceeded 90 billion. During the previous lockdown period, the largest number of transactions on one day was only 6 billion. Currently, Qingtian Capital has a market value of 630 billion. When Li Yuan saw this number, he knew whose hands the chips fell into. These guys really want to treat them as soft persimmons. To put it bluntly, they just want to take away the benefits without paying any price. This location happens to be the most cost-effective. If it is lower, retail investors will rush in without thinking. At this position, retail investors will be cautious, and those who previously held chips will consider reducing their holdings. There is a saying everywhere on the internet called PE trap. Qingtian Capital's PE is now less than 8, which is not far behind bank stocks. But they will say that this kind of data is abnormal, it is a single-year performance, there is no stability, the funds in it are waiting for dividends, and the financial industry is not sustainable, and whoever buys it will suffer. This reminded Li Yuan of XX Marine Holdings, whose price-to-book ratio was less than 1 and its stock price was falling all the way. The market has been devaluing the stock all day long, and the stock price has dropped to 8 yuan, with a market value of 100 billion and no one wants it. As a result, the big funds enjoyed the dividends, and they ate 30 points of dividends in 2 years. In A shares, many people will have the illusion that whatever they buy will fall, as if someone is watching the little funds in their hands. In fact, you have fallen into a trap. This trap is the strangulation of small funds by big funds. At the current position of Qingtian Capital, retail investors dare not enter. But foreign capital and big domestic capital are entering like crazy. As long as there are bargaining chips on the market, they will eat them, and they can also suppress the stock price and prevent it from rising. Just in time, Li Yuan was ready to attack at this position to avoid accidental injury. Li Yuan has a bargaining chip that he can use, which is the 10% held by Lotus Trust. This 10% is held separately. Even if the holdings are reduced, no announcement will be made. It's just that in theory, he and Li Yuan are acting in concert, but no one knows. A violation is a violation. Not only him, he will also directly breach the contract with the 5 major banks over time and ask the 5 major banks to reduce their holdings. He had signed an agreement with the 5 major banks. A total of 15% of the shares there could be sold at any time without triggering a shareholding reduction announcement, because each company only had 3%. It is not a problem for Qingtian Capital to trap that group of people for 2 trillion yuan. The 2 trillion yuan will basically make them completely dumb and unable to pretend anymore. After Li Yuan came back, he basically stayed in the village and hospital. Song Jiajia was expecting to give birth there, Zhou Ranran was 4 months pregnant, and Anna Shen's child was still young. As a result, seeing that the Chinese New Year was coming the next day, Gu Dongshen and Chen Qi came over. Li Yuan really didn't want to receive these 2 guys at home, especially Gu Dongshen, who had a murderous look on his face. But come all come. Then a strange scene occurred. Zhang Yuling is the head teacher of the 3 of them. Usually when he and Zhang Yuling are together, he doesn't feel that way, but now. Zhang Yuling took the initiative to chat with Chen Qi and the others, talking about academic issues, and knew that the 2 of them had no chance of getting their degree certificates. After all, they had not taken the exam for 2 years. In addition, I didn't donate any money to the school, so the school couldn't find an excuse to open a back door. Unlike Li Yuan, he didn't go to class for 3 years and still got a degree certificate. Gu Dongshen bought a lot of gifts, and Chen Qi also bought some. After having a meal at home, Li Yuan took the 2 of them to the villa area behind the village, pointed to 2 villas, and said, "This place is reserved for you. It has not been decorated yet. Let's talk about it when you come back. Where should I go tonight? Not at my house." Gu Dongsheng said with a smile, "Lao Li, you are not being righteous now. We came all the way here and had a meal, and you are going to drive us away. Otherwise, can we still keep you here for the new year? Then why don't you care about Lao Chen's emotional problems? You don't care. What he chooses is his own business. If you are willing to use the bus for personal use, you will have to bear the consequences. Ha ha ha, the bus is for private use." After Gu Dongsheng finished laughing, he said to Chen Qi, "Old Chen, do you understand? This guy Chen Qi, after meeting his former goddess and sleeping with her, actually wanted to marry her. Gu Dongsheng is so disrespectful of Sister Li." Chen Qi was a little embarrassed. Li Yuan understood the meaning of the words and said, "Old Chen, that's enough. It's just for fun. If you really get married, we will live our own lives in the future. I won't give you the villa here if you keep it, I will compensate you an additional 50 million yuan. Are you kidding me? Tian Tian is no different from Tong Sui. They only have the value of sleeping, not even spending the night. Many big shots get into trouble because they use official cars for personal use. There must be a reason why a bus becomes a bus. Any car does not become a bus from the beginning. Public buses are in line with status, but not in line with life. Not only do they have no value, forcing them to be privately owned will cause a lot of trouble and even destroy a person. End of chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 356. No one is more open-minded than Gu Dongsheng. It's just that he has a good relationship with Chen Qi and it's not suitable to talk about it. So I brought him to Li Yuan, and then found an opportunity for Li Yuan to speak. Li Yuan's words are more effective than him. After all, feelings become more unscrupulous the closer they get. For example, with parents, knowing that parents will not ignore their children, they can cause trouble without restraint. Try making trouble in front of outsiders. Who will answer you? In the same way, now Tian Tian kneels down to lick him and serve him well, but once she gets married, her wealth will become her arrogant capital, because this is her nature. Li Yuan saw Chen Qi hesitating and continued, "Let me tell you a story. There was a girl who was very beautiful. A rich second generation and an ordinary boy were pursuing her. She chose the second generation of rich people. Just a dozen years later, the second generation of rich people fell into poverty and became poor, while the ordinary boy gradually became a billionaire through his own efforts. The girl regretted it very much after seeing it, and then she reborn. This time, she decisively chose the ordinary boy instead of the rich second generation. A few more years passed, and ordinary boys were still ordinary boys, even struggling for life. And the rich second generation, after inheriting the family's property, made even more brilliant achievements than his family. After hearing this, Gu Dongsheng gave Li Yuan a thumbs up. The description is so apt. To put it bluntly, Chen Qi's success has nothing to do with that woman, but his failure is closely related. Chen Qi had almost no choice. Li Yuan spoke and made his words so clear. How could he persist? A villa here is not just a house in name, even if it is renovated, it will only cost a few million. With Chen Qi's current worth, it would not be a problem to buy several hundred units. Then I'll break up with her immediately. After Chen Qi said this, Gu Dongsheng shook his head. Break it off? The more you say you want to break it off, the more it means you can't let it go. No matter what she says to you, just ignore it if you can. As long as you don't spend money for her, then she will always stick to you, because she can't find anyone richer than you. When you come back, you can deal with it how you want. Anyway, as long as you don't take her seriously, then you can. Not only if you gain more, you won't have any psychological burden, and she will pay it forward to you. Just as you are guilty of being mean, others will also be guilty of being mean. Who in the world would not be a bitch? In Gu Dongsheng's opinion, only Li Yuan couldn't. Li Yuan also said, actually, you just have an obsession. If you let it go for a while, that obsession will disappear. If you get married, even if you don't see it in the future, there will be no room for regrets, because they no longer care about you. The more obsessed you are, the more you should fish for her. Ask yourself, will she still treat you like this when she is rich in the future? Once Chen Qi accepts marriage, there is no doubt that he will give the woman a lot of money. Getting married means that you have compromised. Everything in the past is forgotten. It is equivalent to starting over. You are still a desperate licker. For this reason, Chen Qi gritted his teeth and agreed. Gu Dongsheng opened his mouth and said to Li Yuan, we are going to leave in 2 days. We will stay a little long this time. Boss, do you have anything else to explain? Li Yuan smiled and said, the money is enough, nothing else. That's fine. Gu Dongsheng understood. The so-called money management means that Li Yuan has opened up some channels. Otherwise, where would they need to spend money? It's nothing more than buying equipment. It takes money to win people's hearts. As the three of them walked, Li Yuan said again, South America is a good place. The temperature is still very high over there at this time. Many tropical fruits can be shipped to China, and the price is not cheap. Yes, I heard that we have obtained domestic lychee seedlings over there. They should be mature in 2 years, and we can sell lychees to China in the winter. Li Yuan, already have it? When I asked people to prepare New Year's goods a few days ago, I got a box, which is more than 600 pounds per pound. Gu Dongshen, haha, it's time for us to get rich. This inexplicable sentence can be regarded as showing his determination. After Li Yuan sent these two guys away, he felt relaxed. When I got home, I saw Zhang Yuling asking, "Classmate Li, where are your two roommates?" Li Yuan's face darkened. "Who are you calling?" "Haha, that's right, I've been your class teacher for a year anyway, so you don't respect teachers." "I'm not that kind of person, I will only be a master and a disciple." Facing Zhang Yuling's identity as the head teacher was like being exposed when he was a kid and watching the daughter-in-law next door take a bath, with a sense of shame. That night, Zhang Yuling took off his gun and handed it to Li Yuan. Li Yuan was stunned for a moment. "What's wrong?" "Here you go, I don't need it anyway, just go and apply for it soon, and then, after the new year is over, go to the garage and I'll teach you." Li Yuan said, "If I want, I can just apply for one again." "Are you keeping this for self-defense?" Zhang Yuling handed the gun to Li Yuan and said, "As long as you are here, I won't need it. From now on, the safety of our mothers will be left to you." Carrying a gun can only bring Zhang Yuling a sense of physical security. And she needs psychological safety even more. This time, she had handed over all her trump cards. From now on, she could only rely on Li Yuan to live. Li Yuan said, "What if I am unable to do it?" "Then I don't blame you, just help me take care of the child." Li Yuan directly put the gun in the drawer. "I'll keep it first. You can tell me when you want. But you put pressure on me for no reason. We have to calculate this carefully and follow the rules for repaying debts according to the rules. If you put pressure on me, it's time for me to put pressure on you, right?" The so-called lunar calendar is a lunar calendar, the month is yin, and it is also called the lunar calendar. The source is the calendar derived from the moon phases deduced by Chinese ancestors and formed after thousands of years, which is more suitable for Chinese babies. So after the Lunar New Year, 2021 has truly arrived. Li Yuan was not at home during the Chinese New Year last year, nor was he at home when it snowed last year. During the Chinese New Year this year, it started to snow during the day. During the day, they visited various houses. At night, Li Yuan accompanied Zhang Yuling to the house left by Zhang Yuanqiao and briefly tidied it up. "When I see those old objects, that figure will appear in my mind." Zhang Yuanqiao helped him a lot invisibly. If it weren't for Zhang Yuanqiao, Shang Yuan Capital would not have given up so easily. But now, Shang Yuan Capital is just a third-rate player, while Qingtian Capital is already a towering tree. Zhang Yuling has feelings for everything and often comes and sits in it in a daze for a long time. This is also the reason why she has never been at peace in her heart. She has to endure this when she is around Li Yuan. "Husband, if you get bored one day, will you divorce me?" Li Yuan was still thinking about Zhang Yuanqiao, but his thoughts were suddenly interrupted by these words. Why did it start again? Zhang Yuling said with some lack of confidence, "Actually, it's not that I can't accept it, but I just can't bear it." "Then don't say it anymore. Some things will always be fine if you don't say them. If you say it every day and annoy me, it won't necessarily happen." "Huh? You actually thought about it?" "I'm angry." Zhang Yuling became arrogant. Li Yuan said, "Then I'm angry too. I won't go home for dinner." After saying that, he turned and left the villa. After going out, I took the car and went to the mountains more than 10 kilometers away. Zhang Yuling returned home with a relaxed look. Zhou Wan asked, "Where is Xiao Yuan?" His classmates called him away and said they wanted to play together. Zhang Yuling pulled Gu Dongsheng out to take the blame. Of course she knew where Li Yuan went. After all, he left for 2 days after the snowfall the year before last. How could she understand Li Yuan? How could this guy be angry over such a trivial matter? He was just trying to save his face and make himself look good. The relationship between husband and wife is most afraid of not saving face for each other, which means that both parties have little room for buffering and can hit the edge of breaking the ice at any time. Jo Wan was a little unhappy. We're going to have New Year's Eve dinner later, and his grandparents will be coming over later. This guy, you give him a call and ask him to come back quickly. Oh, okay. Zhang Yuling went upstairs and came down after a while and said, he said something happened and he asked us to eat first. He will be back tomorrow morning. It will be the same if we make up for it then. In fact, she didn't fight at all, she just wanted to make Jo Wan look good. With an excuse, Jo Wan would stop being persistent and continue to play with her children and get some food for Jiangshu. Originally, there was no shortage of Li Yuan in the family, and everyone had long been used to it. Li Jingchen was just a little guy and couldn't even speak. But it's everyone's favorite. There was no other reason than that Jiangshu had grown up and started to make trouble. Zhang Yuling still can't adapt to this process, and sometimes even chooses to escape. Stay away from that noisy little guy. But the person who has the least presence in the family likes Jiangshu the most. Every time Li Yuan came back, he would specially take Jiangshu out to play. If Jiangshu had any whimsical actions or words, he would patiently accompany, explain, and even teach them. He wasn't even interested in Li Jingchen, and he was completely contrary to everyone around him. Zhang Yuling asked Li Yuan, and Li Yuan only said, Jingchen is too young to play. A newborn little guy can't communicate either. He has to guess. He can't figure it out even after guessing. At least Jiangshu can speak now. Even if he can't guess, he can slowly communicate and understand. Li Jingchen is like a whiteboard account that has just been registered. Although Jiangshu is also a trumpet, he has changed the basic settings and skipped the novice camp, so he can use it immediately. Li Yuan didn't want to go to the novice camp with a whiteboard trumpet. During the thinking stage, Jiangshu got into trouble again. He directly knocked over the pot of croquettes prepared by Jo Wan on the ground. Jo Wan was very angry, but reluctant to fight. As for Zhang Yuling, pretending not to see, she was not willing to fight, so she could only wait for Li Yuan to come back before filing a complaint. End of chapter. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 357. On New Year's Day, at 10 o'clock in the morning, Li Yuan came back. There were many guests at home, but because there were many children, only Li Wanhe was there to accompany them. Fortunately, Zhang Yuling was able to control Ho Wenbin and the others, so they were quite busy overall. After Li Yuan came back, he took over the work from Li Wanhe, and he naturally became the core of today. After a while, Gu Dongsheng and Chen Qi also came over. Li Yuan introduced them to each other, and then prepared to have dinner. Previously, more than a dozen people crowded into one table, but today there were a few more people, and finally 2 tables were opened. Today's guests are mainly the grandchildren of the 13 Taibao, represented by Ho Wenbin. The aborigines of the village, He Jianchuan and Gaoming, were the representatives. There is a group represented by Xu Yanlin and Wang Qi. There is also a faction represented by Meng Jiangguo, Gu Dongsheng, and Chen Qi. Next came Yao Yingsong and Cao Ping. Of course, when lunch was approaching, Li Wanhe went to the hospital and brought Song Dalong over. After lunch, everyone drank tea in the backyard because the main course had not been served yet. Cao Ping talked about the recent financial problems, and how the real estate sector had suffered heavy losses and not a single piece of land in the county could be sold. In the end, Li Yuan took the lead and took a piece of land for real estate development, while Ho Wenbin took a piece of land for commercial development. When the time comes to merge into one company, it is expected that the investment will be no less than 1 billion and the total investment will be no less than 5 billion. After all, the 13 Taibao followed Li Yuan and earned almost 6 billion from selling wine the year before last. Although the amount of wine sold in the past 2 years was not enough, it was still no problem to earn more than 1 billion a year. They also contracted some other projects, and their profits were not low. Li Yuan had already greeted them in advance, and would also take over all the tourism projects in the city. The total scale is only 20 billion. He won't take anything else, because the price-performance ratio is not high now. When the real estate industry is about to die, it will still be okay for him to take over some land at a low price. He doesn't like the existing real estate. No matter how cost-effective it is, he won't buy it. Let's start with Qinghe County as a pilot project. Anyway, it can't be done in 1 or 2 years. This is considered a long-term plan. When the matter was over, Li Yuan winked at Yao Yingsong, and Yao Yingsong made excuses to leave with Cao Ping. From then on, all the people in the backyard were left alone. Maybe Cao Ping and Yao Yingsong also count, but they have special status and cannot participate in this matter. Song Dalong was not qualified originally, but now he is. Li Yuan went to his room, took out a few pieces of information, and then said, "I have a family fund here. There are 1,000 pieces in total, each piece is 50 million, and the total value is 50 billion. Those present are considered the second batch of subscriptions, and the first batch of subscriptions are only 100 shares, and the dividend for each share this year is about 150 million. When Li Yuan said this, everyone understood. This is giving money to everyone. After all, no one in the world would doubt Li Yuan's reputation as the god of wealth. Then, Li Yuan explained the rules. A single family can subscribe for up to 10 shares. If you are interested, just take a contract, write down the amount you want to subscribe, and then transfer the money to the family trust account. That's it." After saying that, he sent the document. When it was Wang Qi's turn, Li Yuan said, "Zioki, just write 10 copies. Your sister Ran will help you pay. However, the interest in the past few years will be given back to you first. So in the first 2 years, it's not much money. This is equivalent to giving it away. After all, according to Li Yuan's trading methods, the investment can easily double in 1 year. Xu Yanlin can also write 10 copies and count them on Anna Shen." Finally, the message was sent to Song Dalong. Song Dalong was surprised. I have it too." He always thought that Li Yuan had made a mistake and that he should not appear in such an occasion. But it happened that Li Yuan sent him a document. This confused him. Can a great good thing happen to him? According to Li Yuan's method, if you buy 500 million, you can still make 500 million a year, right? This income is many times higher than that of Song's shares. Throughout the year, he could not get much money from his Song shares. This pork cycle is almost over, and as a senior staff member, he can feel it. Of course, my dad told me specifically. Song Dalong. I gave away a pig when I co-authored it, so there was such a big reward? He suddenly felt that the most successful thing he had ever done in his life was to pull a pig, put it in the trunk of the car, and then pull it here. Although the cost of raising that pig is very high, almost 5,000 yuan. But it has yielded returns of at least hundreds of thousands or even millions of times. Yu on the side was rather embarrassed. He had no money in his hand. Even if the company's dividend of 35 million comes down to April, he will only be able to spend 50 million at most, which is last year's salary. My previous salary was not much, and my family had to spend money, so I couldn't raise a second salary anyway. But when he came to his side, Li Yuan said, "Mr. Yu, I personally lend you 200 million. You can see how much you can get out. It doesn't matter if you can't get it out. I will give priority to deductions for the first 2 years. The interest will be paid off after the 200 million yuan is paid off before you can participate in dividends." Yu said quickly, "Thank you, boss. This is already another kind of preferential treatment. He is not envious at all that others can buy 10 copies, after all, they have that ability. To put it bluntly, he shouldn't be in this circle, but Li Yuan was kind to him and let him in. Even if he could only buy 1 copy, it was still a huge profit for him, not to mention that Li Yuan lent him 200 million. It was equivalent to Li Yuan sharing his profits with him. But didn't everyone present take away the profits that should have belonged to Li Yuan? Otherwise, how could such a good thing happen in the world? Free money? He Jianchuan and Gao Ming couldn't borrow 50 million, so Li Yuan also borrowed 200 million. After the document was sent out, Li Yuan said, "Write it in the top format as much as possible. If there is a little bit missing, everyone on my side can borrow 100 million. Of course, it still depends on personal wishes. It doesn't matter if you don't want it. This is like saying it in vain. Who would give up this benefit? It's impossible for Li Yuan to defraud them of this little money, right? Can the title of the richest man in the world be considered worthy of this?" After everyone signed the documents, Li Yuan continued, "There are still a lot of 1,000 copies left, so I will leave them to the children. For children born in the future, I will give away a separate copy. Only over 100 copies were sent out today, and there are still more than 700 copies left. 1 share for 1 child will last for many years. This family fund is more like an internal system, and Li Yuan will have to fight for this money for a long time." When Yu heard this, he felt uncomfortable again. He Jianchuan and Gao Ming are both in their 30s and can have more children. But he was already over 40 and it was too late to have another child. Maybe others can still find a mistress, but he must not find one, because his wife and he are college classmates, and the two of them can be regarded as inseparable. Not to mention 50 million, even if it's 50 billion or 50 billion, he can't mess around with this matter. Fortunately, my children are older and will be able to go to college soon. My own grandson should also count, right? Okay, deal. Let your children get married as soon as possible, get married and have children, and avoid detours in their lives. Otherwise, if I work very hard, I won't be able to earn 50 million a year. How much help can his father help? Isn't it because of Li Yuan that we can have what we have now? Otherwise, except for the large apartment in Zhangzhou, he would not be able to get out 5 million in cash." Before finishing the meal, Gu Dongsheng left with Chen Qi. Their flight is tomorrow and they have to go back to Zhangzhou tonight and then get ready. After bidding farewell to Li Yuan and getting in the car, Gu Dongsheng said to Chen Qi, "Are you still thinking about that piece of shit goddess of yours now? Stop reading and get ready to have a baby." Gu Dongsheng said with a smile, "Then I will be a few steps ahead of you, at least this year you will definitely have no chance." "Who said that? It's okay even if you go abroad. Many girls who go abroad are looking for their sponsor dad. The prerequisite is that you dare." Chen Qi thought for a while and finally recognized the reality. To put it bluntly, it is difficult to deal with those girls abroad. No matter how exaggerated domestic girls are, they are just talking. Girls like that who dare to go abroad on their own without any trump cards are more ruthless than normal people. Gu Dongsheng can play, but he can't. Gu Dongsheng continued, "Lao Li has already shown his cards in advance this time. Almost everyone has a job. What he means is that this team will most likely not add new people in the future, and will focus on cultivating future generations. This idea is very stable and not prone to accidents." What's the meaning? Chen Qi doesn't quite understand. Because there are too many people staring at him now, and the name of the world's richest man is too big. If he does anything, it will definitely affect too many interests, and there will definitely be people who fight against him. In 20 or 30 years, everything will be over. It's different. Isn't it still the same? The difference is huge. If Lao Li wants to go into politics now, who would dare to let him go? He can do too many things. If it is his child, even if someone is on guard, he will not refuse directly. After all, the matter itself is not being so easy to refuse requires paying a huge price. The most important point is that Lao Li will only get stronger and stronger in the future, so strong that no one dares to refuse him. Otherwise, why are Yao Yingsong and Cao Ping at the dinner table? The two of them, there is a high probability that he will become a helper to future generations in the future. Chen Qi. Isn't it just a meal? Couldn't it be that Li Yuan wanted to make more friends? Can you tell so much from just one meal? All of us are his chess pieces, but to be honest, many people are not even qualified to be chess pieces. Good or bad is not important. What is important is that Lao Li is not someone who burns bridges by crossing rivers. It can be seen from his actions today come out. Old Chen, work hard, maybe in a few years, we will be nobles. Noble. These two words seem to have magic power. In my first year of junior high school, I received a lot of gifts. Li Yuan would not return the gift because his family could not leave. It was nothing more than a phone call to 13 Taibao. On the 6th day of the first lunar month, Song Jiajia was born. Li Yuan took Jiangshu to play in the hospital for several hours, while Li Wanhe got close to Song Dalong and found opportunities to hang out. The process went smoothly, and Li Yuan welcomed his second daughter. At the same time, Yu Yu also completed what Li Yuan had arranged, which was to take his biological test materials to do a paternity test with Li Siking's biological test materials. Except for Zhang Yuling's two children, he did not do any appraisals, including Zhou Mo, who did all the appraisals. It's not that I'm worried, it's that I feel more at ease this way. Song Jiajia doesn't need to bother Yu Yu. It can be done directly in the hospital. The doctor does it in private. Song Dalong didn't care at first, but the child was born after all. Even for the right to bear the surname, he had to be more enthusiastic, so that he would have a successor. Time flies and it's the end of February. Li Yuan reduced his holdings of some Qingtian capital stocks when he had nothing to do, and the market's acceptance was still very strong. At the same time, Qingtian Capital is also reducing its holdings. The entire market is still active, and the reason is that many big capitals have already taken out their coffins. The principle is also very simple. If the returns of other stocks are not as good as expected, they will look higher. And Qingtian Capital has trapped too much of their capital, so they can only increase investment. The market uses Qingtian Capital as the weather vane. If Qingtian Capital does not collapse, other stocks will be able to hold on. Occasional corrections are nothing at all. The size of Qingtian Capital has stayed at 250 billion. Originally, according to the market, this position should have been 2,700 billion or even 2,800 billion. However, Li Yuan reduced his holdings a lot, including Qingtian Group's reduction of 80 billion before the year, and Qingtian Capital's reduction of 100 billion after the year. The reduction of holdings will continue in the future, and March is also a year of reduction. No one can make all the profits, including Li Yuan. Stocks are not like futures, which are purely counterparties. Because of the uncertainty of the stock bubble, it is not absolutely necessary to earn as much as others lose. You will only make less than others and lose less, not more. March 1st. Kixing Motors announced its delivery numbers today. A total of 1,800 units. Compared with other new energy vehicles, which often sell 5,000, 6,000, or even 20,000 or 30,000 per month, this sales volume can be said to be appalling. At present, the second production line has also been laid out. In fact, Kixing Motors' production capacity is not low, with one production line producing close to 10,000 units a month, but most of them are of a unified standard and have been internally digested by Qingtian Group. For example, when allocating cars to employees, basically every employee must be equipped with one. The company's cars are basically equipped with the lowest configuration, and customers have personal options when buying them. Because there are insufficient orders, the overall production is also slow. We cannot run an assembly line because only 3 or 5 people may order certain configurations. Fu Zonghai cleared his fund holdings to get enough money to buy a car. Because he clearly felt that the fund had reached its peak and there was basically no room for operation. Anyway, as long as he keeps the stock, his cost will soon become negative, and he will make a profit no matter what. His biggest source of confidence is stocks, from hundreds of thousands at the beginning to more than 4 million, and now to more than 15 million. In another month, he can still get more than 2 million in dividends. End of chapter. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 358. Hey, your son hit someone again. Zhang Yuling is complaining. She was already used to complaining to Li Yuan. 3-year-old Zhang Shu had already reached the point where people hate him and dogs hate him. After all, if you try to reason with him, he won't listen or understand. Li Yuan looked at Zhang Shu's body covered in water and splayed his teeth and claws in Zhang Yuling's arms, and hurriedly took it over. Who told you not to play with him? Li Yuan's words made Zhang Yuling angry and said, just spoil him, sooner or later he will become a playboy. Haha, that's not necessarily the case. Li Yuanil took Zhang Shu out peacefully. He knows very well that 3-year-old children are at their strongest learning ability. Never underestimate the power of a naughty child. Their learning speed is much faster than that of many adults. Even some complex mobile games can be played after watching a few games. You may not necessarily play particularly well, but you can at least play well. But similarly, you cannot get along with them as a parent. When you are strict, be strict. Most of the time, you still have to be friends with your children. Otherwise, children will develop a sense of boundaries in the future, and subconsciously feel that they are afraid of what their parents say in whatever they do. Even if the children they educate have good personalities, are down to earth, and are serious and eager to learn, there will always be a corner in their hearts hidden from their parents. There is another problem currently, and Li Yuan also feels it. That is, parents spend too little time with their children. He can't control anything else, but the Qingtian group can definitely control it. Can be graded. For example, after giving birth to a child, the working hours are reduced by 1/3, the salary remains unchanged, and the time limit is 3 years. Either the salary can be reduced and the workload can be halved. As long as the work is still serious and the service attitude is shown, the number of working hours does not actually affect the overall situation. Li Yuan spread the saved marketing costs equally on this, which was enough to make up for the losses. After all, other people's marketing expenses for each car are more than 100,000. Although sales have increased in a short period of time, Li Yuan wants to build long-term reputation. His popularity is not particularly lacking, it is just that there is no carpet advertising, and his time cost is sufficient. Many people have already gotten the car online and have begun to share their experience of using the car online. Overall, I'm quite satisfied with it. It's not much different from competing products at the same level. It has both shortcomings and advantages. It's just that the brand power is not good enough. And so far, few people have used the details about the service. The so-called brand power is more like the precipitation of time. When everyone thinks it is a luxury car, then it is a luxury car. No matter how bad it is. Being able to sell 10,000 to 20,000 units this year has met Li Yuan's psychological expectations. After all, this is only the first generation, and real smart driving has not yet been launched. Another point is that many people have not used services and do not understand what those services represent. To put it bluntly, even ordinary people can have celebrity admission tickets. It's not like other brands say that they are celebrities after buying a car. When asked about specific services, no one said anything. Once a serious illness occurs, something is urgently needed, or some services with a relatively high entry threshold are needed, the identity of the kixing owner can be reflected. Most people don't know which hospital has better pediatrics. There are a lot of marketing accounts on the internet boasting about it, and the information is confusing and poor. Most people don't have the energy to make an appointment with a specialist, and they don't know which specialist is better, let alone when the specialist will be available. In this world, there are many more information gaps than imagined. The worlds in which ordinary people and celebrities live are completely different worlds. Even if some people have money, if they lack connections, they will not be able to obtain the corresponding resources, and may even be more likely to be deceived. The so-called class channel is not something that can only be achieved with money. The real class barriers are more like resource barriers. Most people will suffer a lot when crossing the class. Even if they get rich in a short period of time, the market will take it back with all kinds of unreasonable desires. In the end, the class will not rise and the wealth will be gone. The simplest example is that after a person has money, he wants to find a good-looking girlfriend and spend money to get an internet celebrity or star. But after spending hundreds of thousands and millions, I found out after I got it that anyone could drive my car without paying any money. And if others drive it casually, the car will be more affectionate to them and not indifferent to you. Even if you maintain it every day and use the best engine oil, the car will have no affection for you and would rather be driven violently by others. There are many other things. For example, if you buy a brand name bag, the value will be reduced by half. But people take it away and use it as they please, and then return it after using it without paying a penny. Even if someone buys it, they can still find someone to buy it at the original price or even at a premium. Ordinary people buy it and get it in their hands, only getting a moment of vanity. Class is everywhere and airtight, harvesting people all over the world who want to work hard to climb up. Very few can really squeeze in. Even people like Ho Wenbin and others who are born with class can still not get into many circles despite trying to gain scalps. Li Yuan didn't care about the scolding about kixing motors on the internet, since he didn't recharge anyway. No matter if you scold it, it can at least give some heat and let many people know about the existence of this brand. Black and red are also red. In this mode, he is not afraid of the dark. Fu Zonghai bought a car, but now he faces a problem, that is, no matter where he is, people say he is a big grievance. And he also encountered another headache recently, that is, his parents insisted on letting him go back. He doesn't want to go back now because he knows what he will face when he goes back. He is not young anymore, he has reached 30 years old in the blink of an eye. At this age, in rural areas, it is basically equivalent to being unavailable. Unless he makes a lot of money. The fact that he is worth more than 10 million has not been told to anyone in real life, not even his parents. He has been chasing girls recently, from the group. It was a joke at first, but then he got a little serious. He chatted with the girl several times, and the more he talked, the more he felt. It's just that girls are also richer, and they have earned millions from the stock of Qingtian capital. Although not as much as him, I subconsciously feel that his worth of more than 10 million is not worthy of a woman worth millions. There are too many concepts that have been instilled in me since I was a child. Ever since he was young, everyone has been telling him that a man should have responsibilities, and that a woman only needs to take care of her family. A monthly salary of more than 10,000 yuan is not worthy of a girl who has no job. This is normal. Now he is worth tens of millions. If you put it bluntly, he is certainly not worthy of a girl worth millions. Only if someone has an annual salary of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands will he have a psychological advantage. After hesitating for a long time, he finally confessed to the girl he liked. He is obviously better and not bad looking, but he just feels inferior and anxious. Can you be my girlfriend? After his message was sent, the girl did not reply immediately. He knows girls are online. After about a few minutes, the girl replied, "If you are willing to liquidate your Qingtian Capital stocks now, I can consider it." After seeing this reply, Fu Zonghai was stunned. At first glance, he thought that this girl was a market bastard, right? Dividends are about to be distributed. Who is willing to throw away the chips at this time? The chips at this time are like a woman's underwear. Once thrown away, it is impossible to put it back on. If you buy again after selling, the cost will increase significantly. Is there a reason? Don't you want to be my boyfriend? You said this reason yourself. Let me consider it. Well, you make a decision before the market closes today. Don't wait until the expiration date. Fu Zonghai's heartbeat was very fast. He really likes this girl, but the problem is, should he give up the next dividend? Giving up potential future gains. Although the dividend will be X-Reizt, which is essentially the same as maintaining the stock price, it is equivalent to giving more chips in disguise. Qingtian Capital is now the number 1 A-share company and is far ahead of Mutai, which is the second largest company in terms of market capitalization. Can the market value exceed 10 trillion in the future? Once he breaks through, the chips in his hand may be worth 30 million. Almost everyone who invests firmly believes that Qingtian Capital can exceed the market value of 10 trillion, because it only needs Qingtian Capital to achieve super returns for another year, which will make people see the stability of Qingtian Capital and Li Yuan's super strength. He opened his account and looked at his holdings of nearly 300,000 shares. He really couldn't make up his mind. He thought about a few months ago, when he vowed in the group that he would never sell stocks until he made 10 million. Now, the holdings have exceeded 15 million, not much behind the 16 million. Any fluctuation of a penny would show an increase or decrease of several thousand yuan in his account. On the other hand is the chance to find a girlfriend. He put his hand on the sell button and felt as if he was in a dream. He admitted that he was too greedy. It was clearly promised to be 10 million, but now it has increased to more than 15 million and it is still not satisfied. He can completely take out this money, so that his parents no longer have to work, and no matter how hard it is, he can still marry a wife, have 2 children, and find a bond for the old couple for the rest of their lives. Regardless of whether the girl agrees to him or not, it is already time for him to leave. Even if there are still more than 2 million yuan in dividends, there is a huge expectation of filling rights. But who can guarantee that it will actually be fulfilled? He didn't believe in Qingtian Capital, he believed in Li Yuan. And Li Yuan hasn't appeared for a long time. 3 o'clock. The girl sent a message. It's time, bye. Fu Zonghai finally regained his composure and hurriedly said, wait. I've already cleared the warehouse. After he clicked send, he continued, thank you for making me sober. I almost spent the rest of my life on this money. He didn't ask the girl to be his girlfriend, but sent a screenshot of his clearance to the group. Brothers, I'm clearing my position. I'm going to use this money to find a girlfriend and let my parents live a good life. I know that many people in the group are like me, and all their wealth is in this stock. But Yuan Shen, the purpose from the beginning is not only to make everyone make money, but also to hope that everyone can live a good life. I will leave first and wish everyone good luck. End of chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 359. Fu Zonghai has a great influence in the group. After all, he established this group. In the entire group, no one is currently worth less than 1 million, and countless people show off in the group every day. This group is more like an alternative Vanity Fair. Many people even quit their jobs and just kept their accounts. They found countless reasons to prove that Qingtian Capital will definitely reach 10 trillion or even 20 trillion. For example, in the 3 years since Qingtian Capital was listed, its performance has exploded year by year. In the first year, because it was listed late, we could only see the annual report data and no dividends. At that time, the net profit was only a few billion. In the second year, the net profit exploded to more than 100 billion, with a dividend of 70 billion. In the third year, it broke through the recognition, with a net profit of more than 800 billion and a dividend of 700 billion. The increase is nearly tenfold every year. Although it is unlikely that they will continue to break new highs this year, and they may not even be able to stabilize the net profit of more than 800 billion, they are fully confident that they can achieve revenue of 300 billion. A net profit of 300 billion is enough to maintain a market capitalization of 67 trillion. For a company with such explosive performance, 20 times PE is nothing. Apple still has 40 times PE. In their world, the world belongs to Li Yuan. In the financial field, he is the absolute king. He can dominate all market trends and make huge profits. And these people in the group only believed in Li Yuan, because Li Yuan brought them a lot of wealth. They have been living in a crazy atmosphere, and everyone is losing their minds. They fantasize about becoming billionaires, multi-millionaires. But today, this dream was shattered by Fu Zonghai. No matter how good the relationship is on weekdays, there are still people who go berserk at this time. What the hell do you mean? You, the group leader, are going to betray us, right? Some people asked questions, but very few responded. Radicals are in the minority after all. Besides, what's so radical about it? Fu Zonghai's more than 10 million has no impact on the entire market. It's nothing more than the most ardent fan who chooses to sell, which makes everyone feel that their Taoist heart has been damaged. They also want more income and don't want to see Fu Zonghai sing empty words. They don't care if others empty their mouths, but not Fu Zonghai. Fu Zonghai's confession also made some people wake up. You have already earned enough, how much should you earn? Especially those who have made tens of millions or even hundreds of millions in profits. After they wake up, they start to think about leaving the market. Even if not all, at least 1/3 or half should be withdrawn. Fu Zonghai felt empty at this time, because there would be nothing to look forward to tomorrow, and his worth would be fixed here. With more than 10 million in cash, he even lost interest in his current job. He wrote a resignation letter to the company and took a look at the contents of the rental house. There was nothing worth missing. He has been living a very hard life in the past few years and has been saving money to invest in the stock market. In addition, the company has encountered difficulties, so he basically only pays a basic salary and does not buy anything for himself. It's just right now, and there's no need to bring it home. He contacted his service manager and asked him to send 2 bottles of Maotai and 2 gold bars. These are the rights of car owners. Gold bars are bought according to the market price, and Maotai is bought according to 1,499. In total, you can save 3 to 4,000 yuan compared to the market price. No matter what others said about resentment, he didn't think there was any problem. All the products under the name of Qingtian Group are very comfortable to use, they allow you to see where your money is spent, and the services you can enjoy are real. Instead of laying various traps for you, giving you a discount coupon to buy another product. Bixin Mall has premium products. Recently, a clothing brand called Kinsey was launched. Any of the clothes in it cost tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands. It was clearly written on how much handwork was used, and each piece of clothing was strictly reviewed. The most important thing is that the production is extremely limited, and each piece has a special number. The cost is so much, be careful when buying. At present, some people on the market have doubled the price. There are basically only a few dozen sets on the shelves every month, making it difficult for normal people to grab them. There is no one else in the world that can label its own products with a cautious purchase label except Bix and Mall. Even if you know it is an IQ tax product, the item itself is not worth that much, the labor costs and raw material costs are too high. Just after he packed up all his things and disbanded the group, he found that the girl he had previously chatted with had sent him several messages. "If you disband the group, aren't you afraid that you won't be able to find me?" The two of them have always been in a temporary conversation state and have not added friends. "Fuzong Hai, we don't know each other to begin with. I just saw your photos and became lustful. I didn't expect you to be my girlfriend." Girl: "Hey, multimillionaire, who doesn't want to find a boyfriend like this?" Fuzong Hai: "What about you?" Girl: "I want to find someone who can control his desires. It doesn't matter if he is dizzy for a while, and can be clear-headed after listening to advice. Do you mind telling me your location? Let's meet later." Fuzong Hai: "I'm in Zhangzhou." Girl: "I know, this distance is nothing." Fuzong Hai: "Let me tell you a secret. In fact, you are not the only one who has privately chatted with me. The conditions I gave are the same, but you are the only one who has actually cleared the goods." Fuzong Hai: "Hurry up and tell me the location. But I'm ready to go back to my hometown. Then your parents won't mind you bringing a girlfriend home, right?" Li Yuan suddenly discovered that there were some changes in Qingtian Capital's market. The market activity was much higher than before, and there were more chips. In fact, it is easy to judge the chips of Qingtian Capital because not many people are willing to take it out at this time. Seeing that high dividends are just around the corner, a large number of active chips appear at this time, which means that those big funds simply cannot afford it. As a result, Li Yuan was forced to slow down the reduction of his holdings. In the past 2 days, he has reduced his holdings by at least 30 to 40 billion. At night, Zhang Yuling was playing on the bed with his laptop. When he saw Li Yuan coming in, he smiled and said, "A little sister is getting married. What gift do you think I should give her?" "Ah, do you have a little sister? Why have I never heard of you?" Zhang Yuling's circle is that of the 13 Taibao, and she doesn't have much communication with Ho Wenbin and others, except that they are relatively close. Zhang Yuling said, "I am the chief helmsman, okay. Isn't it easy to get to know a few little sisters? And, I taught that little sister how to find a partner." Li Yuan was puzzled. Could Zhang Yuling still do this? "What did you teach?" She's just a homebody, she's pretty, and her family is quite rich, so she doesn't feel safe with anyone. So I gave her a trick and let her get involved in a Qingtian Capital communication group." Go. After the leaked photos, a lot of people chatted about her privately. Then what? Then it's simple. Anyone who chats privately will be asked to sell the stocks of Qingtian Capital. Basically, everyone in that group holds millions or even tens of millions of stocks, and the conditions are not bad. Although my group there are some differences between the little sisters, but they make do. Li Yuan. In the end, a guy actually sold more than 15 million of his positions. Regardless of future market conditions, selling Qingtian Capital stocks right now is really like taking advantage of others. But the people who can sell in this place are also clear-headed people. Even if Qingtian Capital rises again, where can it rise? So what if he counts 10 trillion? It's nothing more than another 80% increase. Among the retail investors who are currently holding positions, which one has not already multiplied 4 or 5 times? Taking 4 or 5 times the principal to gamble on 80% of the upside is not cost-effective no matter how you look at it. What if it goes up later? Wouldn't they hate your little sister to death? What do you hate? My little sister's family has hundreds of millions, and it will all be hers in the future. Oh, I'm a rich woman, then it'll be fine. Yes, I wouldn't let you suffer in the first place. Besides, I didn't clear out my inventory just because of her. I just suddenly woke up and felt that seizing the present is more important than the uncertain future. Having such an attitude towards life is what makes me that little sister is the most important. That's right, then what gift are you going to give? Zhang Yuling thought for a while. Invite her to my house for a meal? I'll customize a dress for her. Sure, as long as she doesn't find it troublesome. If you want to have dinner with Li Yuan, you must either be someone you know very well, or you have to be investigated. You have to be searched when you come in or out. Then at the end of the month, you won't be free, will you? If you're not free, people won't see me very often. Whenever you have time, there will be plenty of free time in the future. Even if Li Yuan is not ready to retire, he still has to pretend to retire. He doesn't plan to leave the village this year. Around March 20th, Li Yuan began to continue shipping. The market value of Qingtian capital has dropped somewhat. The upper part is not strong enough to take over, but the lower part is still very strong. The basic market value has stabilized at 5.8 trillion. To be able to stabilize such a large market, those big funds have invested at least 2 trillion, because the chips in the hands of retail investors are getting smaller and smaller, and he has almost reduced his holdings, leaving only the last 200 billion. 200 billion is not much, less than half of it. It can be seen from the top 10 shareholders of tradable shares that Xiangjiang Clearing has become the third largest shareholder, with a shareholding ratio of more than 1%. Even if there is some domestic capital pretending to be foreign capital, there are certainly not many. Because there is no need to go to so much trouble, now is not the time to set the pace. Foreign capital pretending to be domestic capital requires more procedures. Hundreds of billions of foreign capital, he wanted to see who else could save them. Friday, March 28th. This day is the dividend date of Qingtian Capital. After excluding the market value of 700 billion, the total market value is only 510 billion. After the ex-dividend period, it rose slightly by 2 points. In Fuzhonghai's group, no one sold stocks before and they were very happy because it was clear that they had to fill in their rights. Under normal circumstances, after X rights, a large part of the chips will be sold out. As a result, it can still rise today, which means that there are more funds entering the market. But Fu Zonghai didn't care about this because he was going to meet someone with his girlfriend today. The chief rudder of the Divine Alliance. This is a legendary figure. He was Li Yuan's #1 fan when he first started. The most important point is that it is said that the chief helmsman knows Li Yuan. Han, the chief helmsman lives in Qinghe. Fu Zonghai asked. The woman in the passenger seat nodded and said, yes, she has been living in Qinghe. Li Yuan's hometown is also in Qinghe. Fu Zonghai has no reason not to get in touch. As a big fan of Li Yuan, he would definitely know Li Yuan's personal information by heart. What happened in Qinghe? The chief helmsman already knows Li Yuan. Huh? Real or fake? Fu Zonghai had only heard rumors and never confirmed it. Wu Yuhan smiled and said, you'll know later. She couldn't say it in advance, and she didn't even say she wanted to see the chief helmsman until the car was halfway through. For Fu Zonghai, her identity is more reliable because she has been investigated for a long time. So far, Fu Zonghai doesn't know who he wants to see, and even if he has any questions, he doesn't have time to prepare. Wu Yuhan adjusted the navigation. About half an hour later, the car arrived at the entrance of the village and was stopped. Get out of the car quickly. Huh? I think there's still a long way to go inside. If another car comes to pick us up, get off the bus first and do a test at the door. At 10:30, Li Yuan spoke on major social platforms. First, it was paired with a photo of him holding his child. Final text, I am very happy to meet so many fans in the past few years. I am already 22 years old. At this age, for others, it is just the beginning. For me, there is nothing worth caring about in the world, except family. Starting from today, I will leave work and officially return to my family. I am here to tell you all. From now on, Qingtian Capital will no longer have anything to do with me. I will focus on my family and poverty alleviation projects in some remote areas. It is expected that in the next 10 years, the total amount of accumulated donations or investments in projects in remote areas will not be low. At 600 billion Chinese coins, this is also my entire net worth. In the financial markets, I have not lost so far. However, I owe my family too much. I want to use the next time to make up for my wife and children. Qingtian Group will start to reduce its holdings in Qingtian Capital stocks from next Monday. On the day when the reduction is completed, Qingtian Capital will follow. I don't have any relationship anymore. At the same time, I will not provide any investment advice to Qingtian Capital, nor will I participate in any operations of Qingtian Capital. Li Yuan's statement simply stirred up a hornet's nest. Qingtian Capital was hit the limit in an instant. It was not someone else who pressed the button, it was Tang Jianjun who pressed it. Because they still have 10% of the chips in hand. Tang Jianjun was actually confused. Li Yuan was deliberately causing trouble. But now is not the time to blame Li Yuan, let's smash the chips first. He went from a huge rise of 2 points to a drop of the limit, exiting nearly 40 billion in funds, and then he couldn't get out. At the same time, at Qingtian Capital, Guo Meng was frantically smashing the market. Because Qingtian Capital still has 1.7 trillion funds yet to come out. The Shanghai Composite Index is 3,400 points. Fixed. In the blink of an eye, a big negative line was pulled out. Zhang Yuling came to the study room. She had already received the news. Seeing Li Yuan drinking tea slowly, she said angrily, "You are really not afraid? What if there is a problem with China's financial system?" Li Yuan said with a smile, "What can go wrong? No one pays attention to A shares in the first place, so it's time to tear it down and start over. By the way, where is your little sister? Is she here yet?" "We're here, waiting for the test results at the door." After Li Yuan heard this, he immediately stood up, picked up the mask, and said, "Then I will pick them up." "Huh? Are you going in person? Otherwise, Tang Jianjun will probably be so angry that he will just remove all the bodyguards. My brother will have no one to protect him from now on. Let's get used to working on his own first. There is still another chapter that will probably be at 4 o'clock in the morning. Let's take a rest first and then read it when we wake up during the day." They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 360. Li Yuan's move indeed did not show any sense of the overall situation. As a result, the entire A-share market lost more than $6 trillion. Of course, it must be with frothy funds. Thousands of stocks fell to the limit, and bank stocks saved their lives. In the end, the entire market fell by 7 points. Just like when it opened in February last year. However, the black swan last year was not man-made, and the current black swan was created by Li Yuan. Except for complaining that Li Yuan is nothing, we have to admit Li Yuan's terrifying strength in the A-share market. That is to say, he did not call on retail investors to rush in, otherwise he would be fully capable of using his own influence to bring about a bull market. Today is just a small test for Li Yuan. Tang Jianjun was furious in the office. He didn't dare to mention him by name, but anyone with a discerning eye knew that he was scolding Li Yuan for not being a thing. The whole A-share market is over. If Qingtian Group really tries its best to smash Qingtian Capital's stock next Monday, it will definitely collapse again. A-shares must not collapse. After venting his anger, he called Li Yuan. This time, However, the call didn't go through. This was the first time he couldn't get through Li Yuan's phone call. Just a few minutes later, this task fell on Yao Yingsong. Yao Yingsong felt miserable. He thought of Li Yuan's previous words that he would give him a big gift. If this was it, he would rather not have it. Once he intercedes and lets Li Yuan intervene to save the situation, he will be completely labeled as Li Yuan. In the short term, there will definitely be merit and even appreciation, but in the long term, it is just like drinking poison to quench thirst. Don't expect to continue to grow in the future. To put it bluntly, a real boss cannot have too many labels on him, especially labels like Li Yuan. He could only accept it. But again, he couldn't get through Li Yuan's phone call. But the leader didn't ask him to call Li Yuan, he wanted him to contact Li Yuan at all costs. Wang Qi is obviously the breakthrough. The call to Wang Qi went through, and the result was that Wang Qi said that Li Yuan had guests at home today and it was not convenient for her to go there. He could only book a flight for the evening while waiting for the phone call in the afternoon. If Li Yuan can get through on the phone in the afternoon, the air ticket will be waived. If he couldn't get through, he would definitely have to go there in person. Although Tang Jianjun could contact the bodyguard and force a conversation with Li Yuan. However, this method will not be used unless absolutely necessary, and it is against the rules. Fu Zonghai and Wu Yuhan were sitting in the car. It was their first time to come to this village. The drivers wore masks and hats, and there were strict procedures for entering and exiting the village, which made them feel that the security here was stricter than anywhere else. After a while, the car stopped at the door of a villa. There was a woman standing at the door of the villa, holding a child in her arms, looking at this side with a smile. Fu Zonghai looked through the glass and was stunned. How could he not recognize that it was Zhang Yuling? That is the only woman in the world who can get the certificate from Li Yuan. Wu Yuhan got out of the car familiarly, ran to Zhang Yuling, looked at the child in her arms, and said, "Is this respect? Why is it so big?" Zhang Yuling said angrily, "Jing Cheng is less than 1 year old. This is Zhang Shu, the eldest son." Wu Yuhan was shocked, "So Jing Cheng is the younger one? You never told me. I didn't get the certificate before, so it's not convenient to tell." Wu Yuhan looked behind Zhang Yuling and asked, "Where's Li Yuan? I brought a crazy fan of his here today." Fu Zonghai was behind, his mind blank. He knew that Wu Yuhan's family was in good condition, had a food processing factory, and was a rich woman. But he never thought that she would bring him to see Li Yuan. Not only that, Zhang Yuling licked her lips at the driver who had just gotten off the car, and then saw the driver take off his mask and walk up to Wu Yuhan with a smile. Fu Zonghai. Long live. He actually let Li Yuan be the driver. Unlike Li Yuan's house, which was peaceful, there was a storm outside. Tang Jianjun issued several emergency announcements, ruling that Qingtian Group's announcement was an illegal shareholding reduction announcement, and could only reduce its holdings by 7% at most, and it must be done 15 trading days later. At the same time, it was announced that 1 billion funds would be invested to save the world. The last step is to stabilize Qingtian Capital's reduction in holdings. Otherwise, Qingtian Capital, with more than 1 trillion in capital, can still crash the market. Christian citizens across the country who want redemption are now queuing up to wait for review. The effect of Li Yuan's move is unprecedented. The stock market crashes next Monday. Tang Jianjun was even considering whether to close the business next Monday and wait until Li Yuan was settled. Otherwise, the loss of wealth would be unstoppable. Many big organizations are already contacting him. They were even worse, trapped in Qingtian Capital. The total amount is more than 2 trillion. If divided equally, one family can have tens of billions of funds. This is all real. Once Li Yuan starts to reduce his holdings, the call auction will fall. It is impossible to have the funds to take on Li Yuan's trillions worth of chips at this position. He can only let him continue to fall. They can still operate other tickets and invest a few billion or 10 to 20 billion to raise them. But where can Xingtian capital go? At this time, who can come up with so much money? They thought that Li Yuan might reduce his holdings, but as a major shareholder, it would be difficult for Li Yuan to reduce his holdings, and they had enough time to make arrangements. It never occurred to me that Li Yuan had no intention of acquiring Xingtian capital. This is a top company that can earn 800 billion in profits a year. Currently, there is only one company in the world that can exceed this net profit. It's called Saudi Aramco. China Tobacco just pays more taxes, because tobacco is heavily taxed. The actual profit is only 1 to 200 billion, and the average tax revenue is more than 1,300 billion. Apple only has more than 90 billion US dollars, which is 600 billion Chinese coins. Li Yuan is still in the absolute controlling stage of this kind of company, so he doesn't want it anymore. What's wrong with you, Li Yuan, and Qian? They never thought about beating Li Yuan to death. They were just greedy after seeing the 700 billion bonus and wanted to get some blood back. They wanted to steal something from Li Yuan's house, but Li Yuan didn't even want the house and buried a bunch of bombs. Tang Jianjun also knows that these large capital cannot collapse, otherwise A shares will lose their ability to raise funds. No matter how miserable they are, they can at least help many companies raise funds. For the entire economy, A shares are still indispensable. After announcing the policy, Tang Jianjun attended a meeting. The theme of this meeting is very simple, that is, to study what Li Yuan wants to do. If Li Yuan is just looking for trouble, then this matter cannot be settled so easily. So much wealth has been dissipated, and it is not enough to make up for all the money Li Yuan earned. 6 trillion yuan has been lost today. What about next Monday? No more 6 trillion? How many 6 trillion A shares can be lost? After discussing for a while, someone said, is there a possibility that Li Yuan has predicted the time for the US dollar interest rate hike in advance, so that the A share market will be flat, and then it will not be cut too hard? This is leaning towards Li Yuan's statement. Someone else said, I think he just vented his anger personally. He criticized so many people at the meeting, and now he uses prime capital as bait to bury all those people's funds in it. Tang Jianjun said with a bad expression, don't maliciously speculate on our comrades. No matter what, Li Yuan has not reached that stage yet. I personally also prefer that he has estimated the US dollar interest rate hike node, and will communicate with him in the future. The God of Wealth said, when do we estimate the time for the US dollar interest rate hike? Someone immediately said, according to the inflation data of the beautiful country, it is possible to raise interest rates in January next year. However, according to inertia, the first interest rate hike may not be carried out until at least July. God of Wealth, how much do you predict the rate hike will be? It is predicted that the 4 interest rate hikes will exceed 100 basis points and be within 200 basis points. Once the interest rate increases exceed 200 basis points, it will be difficult for them to absorb their internal debt. Raising interest rates is not invincible. Raising interest rates will expand domestic debt. The United States itself has tens of trillions of dollars in debt. After interest rates are raised, the interest on those debts will also increase. Indeed, they can use QE to print money to pay off debts, but that will drag the entire beautiful country into an endless loop. Currently, the beautiful country is printing unlimited money. Will it print money again after raising interest rates? Just like adding more water to the noodles and adding more noodles to the water, sooner or later it will expand to the point where no one can control it. Not even 11 aircraft carriers will do. Now no one can predict that a black swan will break out again in February next year, let alone that after the United States raised interest rates for the first time by 25 basis points, it will raise interest rates 3 consecutive times to 50, 75, and 75 basis points respectively. This is just for next year. Even if Li Yuan doesn't smash it, A shares will have to be flat by then. A large number of foreign investors will leave A shares, taking with them the wealth they have accumulated for more than 10 years. A shares are considered safe only if they lie within 2,700 points. It is indeed too early to lay down now, but by August this year, it will also collapse. If you lie down in advance, you can jump around a little longer, and at least you can lose less money. Not to mention too much, a loss of 200 billion is more than enough. The so-called wealth is all a bubble. At present, A shares have no foundation to support the expansion of wealth. After 2 hours of discussion, there was still no result. We can only hope to communicate with Li Yuan. At 2:30 in the afternoon, Yao Yingsong communicated with Li Yuan through Wang Qi. But Li Yuan only said one sentence: "This matter has nothing to do with you. If you want to talk about it, ask your leader to come over and talk about it." Li Yuan would not put the credit into Yao Yingsong's hands so bluntly, and this matter was not something that Yao Yingsong could resolve. Soon, both Tang Jianjun and the God of Wealth knew Li Yuan's attitude. Finally, the God of Wealth called Li Yuan. After all, the matter was too involved. But after making this call, the God of Wealth looked bitter and helpless, and finally said nothing. What should be discussed has been discussed. Li Yuan did not give a reply, and there was nothing they could do. Li Yuan has already taken the blame, what else can they do? At home, Li Yuan walked out of the study and saw Fu Zonghai still sitting upright. From the beginning of the meal until now, Fu Zonghai didn't dare to look at Li Yuan. He just answered some of Li Yuan's questions mechanically. For example, how did he make up his mind to hold Qingtian Capital in the first place? How did he reject the blind date girl's request, and then put all his chips in with all his might? Li Yuan felt that this guy lived a much more transparent life. Being able to bravely reject your parents' unreasonable arrangements emotionally is a kind of courage in itself, and not everyone can do it. It is rare for Zhang Yuling to have such a little sister, and Li Yuan will definitely not refuse her. As for Fu Zonghai, to put it harshly, is he no better than that guy Chen Qi? Not better than those who make little mistakes? We're just friends, what's wrong with that? Fortunately, Wu Yuhan has a lively personality and can be said to be cheeky. She forced Li Yuan and Fu Zonghai to take a photo, and even left his contact information with Li Yuan and added him as a close friend. As a result, Fu Zonghai took out his cell phone and found that his cell phone had been turned off. After arriving, he found out that the person he wanted to see was Li Yuan, so he secretly went to the bathroom and turned off his phone, fearing that there would be some call coming in. When Li Yuan saw this situation, he couldn't laugh or cry. "Lao Fu, you don't have to be so cautious. You can come to play with us anytime in the future. If you need anything, you can contact me directly. Coming to my place is just like coming to your own home. It's so alienating good." Fu Zonghai said tremblingly, "Yuan Shen, I'm just too excited." He couldn't say any polite words, because no one could refuse to be friends with Li Yuan. Li Yuan said with a smile, "Actually, the one I should thank the most is you. If it weren't for your unrelenting trust in me, how could Qingtian Capital be where it is now? With my little capital, I don't know how long it will take." Li Yuan did a lot of things for himself with the help of Ji Min's money. Although Christian did not lose money, he was the one who made the most money. Inside and out, in A shares, it can be considered as a profit of more than 1 trillion yuan, less than 2 trillion yuan. Almost more than 500 billion US dollars have been captured in the US stock market. Oh, it should be 600 billion US dollars now. However, more than $160 billion of it was given to large national funds. At this time, Fu Zonghai plucked up the courage and said, "Yuan Shen, can I ask you a question?" "What's the problem? Just say it. Does A shares still have a future?" This may be a question everyone wants to ask. Even Fu Zonghai didn't know that a shares had been smashed to pieces today. Li Yuan couldn't answer this question because there were too many uncertain factors. After thinking for a while, he said seriously, of course there is a future. Even the big pot that is about to be eliminated can still cook rice. It's just that sometimes the rice cooked in this pot will have some rust, which can be eaten, but I feel uncomfortable. If you can clean this pot, no one will refuse to eat in this pot together. After all, it saves firewood to eat together. It's like ordering takeout, each person has a bowl of rice and 2 dishes. There is actually no difference between 2 people having 2 bowls of rice and 2 dishes, because one person cannot finish both dishes, but 2 people can spread the cost of the takeout evenly to a lower level. End of chapter.